Some may find the following disturbing. Discretion is advised.
Football, it began simple enough. Line up 11 men on one side, 11 on the other. The team with the ball is the offense. The team without it is the defense. Snap the ball, you run, you collide, and you tackle. But now football is much more. No longer just a game of brawn, it's also a game of brains. This is Bare Necessities.
Good evening. Welcome to Bare Necessities. This is episode 3. I'm lucky to be your host tonight, Jordan Silveira. You can find me at Jordan T. Silveira on Twitter. This is Barroom Network, at Barroom Network on Twitter. Of course, the maestro that we usually have is actually still out on vacation. So, viva la vida, Aldo. You can find Aldo, the Aldo Gandia, the maestro, at Aldo Barkeeper on Twitter. As always, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Looking to have a nice talk tonight with special guests that we're going to bring in here shortly. But as always, just got to kind of keep the lights on, if you will. Say the entry of what we need to talk about. That being, as you know, this being episode 3, we are still in our infancy trying to build the ultimate idea of what Bare Necessities is. That is because we are constantly trying to inform, engage, entertain. And that relies on you, the audience. I'd love feedback. I'd like to know what you like to see, what you don't. We're taking a little bit of a change of pace tonight, moving a little bit more away from film, just more to talking about the game. Excited to get into how the Chicago Bears may be modeling after one of the more successful franchises of the last 5 years. Talking about Soldier Field, potentially a dome on Soldier Field, what it looks like if the Bears are indeed moving to Arlington Heights. We're also going to jump into the N'Keal Harry trade. What do we think about that? The roles that they play. So this is exciting. We're very, very happy to get going. With that being said, I'm going to go ahead and bring in here our special guest for the night. Our special guest. Welcome to Barroom Network and Bare Necessities. This is our special guest here, Shorty. How are you?
I'm excellent, Jordan. Thank you. Well, first off, let me say congratulations on Bare Necessities. I'm just thrilled for you. This is amazing. And I'm honored and privileged to be on your show. So thank you very much for having me.
No, thank you so much, sir. I'm very, very happy. And this is really what it's all about. Is certainly I like breaking down film, talking about the X's and O's, but I meant it when I said this show is really about connecting with the barflies that tune in all the time. And you're one of our faithful ones, obviously getting the great answers out of our resident scout, Greg Gabriel, with the Cedric Benson talk. And we'll talk a little bit about that and just kind of nice having everybody here. And this is the start of, as I said beforehand and in previous episodes, if anybody's interested in contributing to Bare Necessities, my line is open. You can get a hold of me, jackpot2123 at Gmail, Jordan T. Silveira on Twitter. Send comments through the YouTube video. I read them. I will make sure. I am trying to make this the best show for everybody. And Mr. Shorty, you are our first guest. I'm excited to kind of break down just different Bears topics with you and even potentially getting into something spicy a little later about something that's just been bothering you since the 2018 playoffs. But
oh yeah, I can't wait for that. Yeah. but to what you were saying, I'm the attestament to that. So, for you opening your airwaves for people to come on here and talk with you, and it's just it's awesome. And I'm just privileged and honored. So thank you again.
Well, we got some people excited here. We got Nick in the chat saying Shorty in this bitch. He's happy to see you. That's a positive. We got Cliff over here saying nice to put a face to the name, Mr. Shorty.
Cliff.
Yeah, so people are.
I see your face in your pictures. You don't see mine. It's just my tattoo, which I can show you. I do have.
Yeah, let's show the people. This is real commitment. You have not seen a Bears fan like Shorty until you see the George S. Hallis tattoo exactly where it should be.
Under the skin.
Gotta love it. That is beautiful. So I guess let's kind of talk about that as we enter into this. You're talking about how much of a big Bears fan you are. I mean, I wish I could tell you I had some bitchin' tattoo like that, but I don't. So let me ask you, out of all your Bears fandom, anything that you want to share, I like to give you, the audience, the opportunity to know our guest, Mr. Shorty. So, Mr. Shorty, anything that you want to discuss about the Bears, your fandom, anything you want to share with the crowd, the floor is yours.
Well, I can just summarize. 10 years old, 85 Bears. Parents didn't follow sports. All of a sudden, they took over the entire nation by storm. And my parents are watching football all of a sudden, and then so am I. So obviously that captivated the entire world. So from that point on, it was all Bears for me. And I got lucky enough in the mid 90s, from 93 to 95. That's what this little, I kind of tried to put this pin up here. This is my 1995 media press pass.
Wow.
My final season. So from 93 to 95, I worked for a company that they controlled the printer. They supplied all the printers for Soldier Field. So they actually did all the copies of every quarter for all of the sports people in the press box.
Oh, wow.
So I got to sit in the press box. I sat next to Andrea Kramer every year, right there. Like in COVID years, it'd be way too close, you know. but we had to, the whole time we could not cheer. We had to just be like, you know. And that was the Eric Kramer years. So with this media pass, I got to go onto the field. I got to go into the locker room, which I never did except for one time. I decided to go in after the Bears lost to the Lions, and I'll never forget Eric Kramer sitting outside of the locker room, just still wearing his hat or his helmet, just sitting there with his head in his hands. And I walked into the locker room, and I played football in high school, so I just wasn't thinking I was going to see a bunch of naked, football players in there. So when I walked in, I was like, oh, I better get out of here, and turned around to walk out. And I walked right into Dave Wanstead, who looked like he was 7 feet tall. To me, I'm 6'2", and he was like 7 feet tall to me at the time. And he was like, kid, what are you doing in here? And I was like, I'm part of the media. And he's like, are you doing any journalism? I'm like, no. He's like, get out of here, kid. I was like, I'm out of here. So
that was Coach Wani.
Yeah. So that was my greatest experience as a Bears fan, was going to all those games for 3 years in the press box. I went to Platteville training camp. I mean, literally, we slept in the dorm rooms with the team, and got our food in the same mess hall with them in the mornings.
Wow. And
we would sit there eating, and we could hear them talking, telling stories amongst each other. And I remember, like, Chris Zorich was on a bicycle underneath the tent while he was training because he was injured. And I remember I was on the sidelines, and one of the cornerbacks tackled someone out of bounds, and I almost had my knees taken out. I was that close to the action. It was just amazing as a young 21-year-old, 20 to 22 or something like that, 23. And it was the best time. It really even more solidified my Bears fandom, for lack of better words.
Well, I love it, dude. That's an awesome story. That's just amazing. I mean, you think about sitting next to Andrew Kramer and getting yelled at by Coach Wani. I'm glad you got to share that with the audience here. I'm glad they get to hear it. We have a lot of members in the community, Barflies, that have special connections rooted to the Chicago Bears, and this is just an opportunity. We want to hear them. I mean, I don't have anything nearly as cool. My most recent thing I can think of is I actually got to talk to Coach Juan Castillo after the preseason game in Tennessee, and that was an interesting experience. But nothing as cool as I didn't get yelled at by Coach Nagy. Lovie Smith never signed the ball for me, anything like that. But it's cool. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing.
To this day, I wonder if Dave Wanstead remembers that.
He's quite a bright guy, so he very well may remember some punky little kid that came in.
And to be honest, those were some of the worst years of my life as a Bears fan. I never really liked Dave Wanstead, but I do like him now. I mean, To me, he was the worst coach that we had in history at the time because it was, after Ditka. So, but, now you look back on it, and I have a lot of admiration for Ronnie, especially for what he's doing in the community of Chicago. So
absolutely. No, he's an amazing man. So thanks so much for sharing that. Okay.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Of course. So I brought you on because you had some interesting ideas that you wanted to talk about, one of which was, I guess we'll just kind of jump into it here, the idea of what's kind of the talk of the town right now in Chicago. Mayor Lightfoot talking about potentially putting a dome on Soldier Field. Some talks about maybe that's a little too late. Is there actually any chance of the Chicago Bears staying put? And I mean, we've got an image. We'll kind of talk about things of that sort, but I just want to kind of pick your brain. Let's share with the crowd kind of your thoughts on the Chicago Bears moving to Arlington Heights, if you think it's a good idea, Soldier Field, just things like that.
Boy, that's a loaded question, right? Because we all love where the stadium is in Chicago, right? I mean, you go to Soldier Field, it's on the lake. You have that north, south-facing stadium with the wind coming in off of the lake. And I've been to so many games. But if you were to go and just, let's not even talk about Arlington Heights. Throw a dome on that stadium. That would, to me, just defy the Bears altogether with. Like, you're just going to go putting a dome on there so you can, get a Super Bowl there to make more money as the city while the team is renting that from you. Mm-hmm. So the team needs the stadium to be their own, much like most, if not all, the other stadiums in the league have. So they have to move to Arlington Heights. I'm sorry, everyone, if you're against that, but for the team moving forward, if they do not, they're not going to be able to keep up with the rest of the NFL. And so the question that I was posing to you about the Arlington Heights property is A, the size of it, and B, how would you locate, the stadium within the massive grounds that you have to create the least light exposure, where you have that crazy sun coming in, where the light's getting into the receiver's eyes, or
sure,
where it's blinding everyone. And so the image that I gave you, I don't know if you can pull it up, but
let's go ahead and
kind of shows Arlington Heights, the Arlington racetrack as it currently is. And I'm just I really honestly have no idea how it should be placed, but I think it's a topic of discussion that should be talked about. In what direction should that stadium be placed on that property to have the best light exposure, as far as, if you're playing a 3:00 game there, where's going to be the best place for the light to be in, not be in your eyes all the time on the wrong side of the field? Because it's going to hurt the Bears at some point, whether they have, depends on what side of the field they're on at that point. So
sure. You should see the image here, and let's kind of just talk about it and what your ideas are, assuming that the Bears are moving here.
So if you look at the image that you're seeing there, is pretty much all the colored image. You can see some of the areas around to the left of Arlington Park, the racetrack. That's down a little bit lower. That's probably all currently parking lot and stuff now.
Okay.
But if you that whole area of the gray, that's all still going to be their property. So you basically have to go to take away the hospital section. That's theirs, and the rest of it will be all the Bears. So the first question that I have is, in what direction is the stadium going to be placed? Do you want it to be over there where you see like that little loop in the dirt up there? Would it benefit best for it to be up there? As far as, actually, I looking at it now, there's no off ramp off of 53. So maybe down further where the current racetrack is. Yeah, it looks like there might be an off ramp there. So that's probably the best location for the stadium itself. Sure. But now, how do you want it to be orientated? Do you want it to face north and south like it is now? Because there's still a problem when you watch the games. I can imagine being a player in the games, you're going to have that sun coming in your eyes in the wrong direction. You see some of those stadiums where you never really see that in the late games. So my curiosity is just how would that be placed? Would it be maybe a little bit more of an angle that it's on right now? Like maybe that's the perfect angle that it's on, according to the racetrack. Maybe the racetrack was designed for that. Maybe not. But
Well,
it's a good question.
Yeah, I think you're getting to such an important point here, which I mean, I certainly want to defer to you on some of the technicalities about where it's placed and sun getting into eyes. But I think even let's just kind of talk about the fact of the matter here that when we look at the actual property itself, let's just look at how massive it is. I mean, and part of what you were speaking about here is just the general idea that ultimately the Chicago Bears don't own Soldier Field. It's leased out by the Chicago Parks District. And when we're thinking about the Bears, and I'm not calling the Bears cheap, but there's always been this belief that the McCaskies don't spend. And what's often not thought about is that the McCaskies, their only source of real income comes from the Chicago Bears brand. When you're looking at this property here, there's opportunities to not just build a massive stadium and with state-of-the-art technology that grants you a potential Super Bowl bid, but we're talking about potentially hotels right across the way, shopping plazas. I mean, boy, I wish I would have prepared a little more and had like a picture of Jerry World here where it's literally they've got a whole shopping center there. I think I could be imagining things, but I want to say they have like maybe like a Ford dealer.
I also heard about a minor league baseball team wants to put fields somewhere in there. That would be a great idea too. It would help the minor league baseball team. It would add revenue to the Bears owning that site. I mean, there's so many different things you could do with this. There's no way in hell they should not take this. If they want to put a dome on Soldier Field, go ahead. You could make it for the soccer team or whatever. But this has to be where the Bears go, period.
No, you know what? I mean, I'm going to stop sharing here for just a second and we'll bring that back up here. But I just think you're really on to something here. And this is what I'm not here to tell. I'll give my kind of, as I gave it on, Bare Their Souls a week and a half ago, but I'm coming from a California perspective. And, I know we got Cliff here in the chat that's like, ew, California. But I come from kind of the tourist background, if you will, that I have a real affinity to Soldier Field. But even I love Soldier Field for a lot of the things that it offers. I even have to realize that as much as this move to Arlington Heights would be negative for me, the positives far outweigh the negatives. And I mean, I'll give you some of the positives of why they should stay. As a person who flies into Chicago, I want to spend my time in downtown Chicago.
I know.
I want to be able to go to Shed's Aquarium and then also hit Soldier Field and then also enjoy all the great deep dish and go see all that downtown Chicago has to offer.
100%.
I love that Soldier Field. I mean, this is a negative in the grand scheme of getting a Super Bowl bid, but it's 64,000 capacity. It's the smallest stadium in the league, which means that when you're a fan, there's hardly a bad seat in the house. It's really intimate. It creates a nice, tight space to see the game.
And just to add to your point of adding the dome, what is the next smallest stadium? It's not very many less or more seats, and they did hold a Super Bowl. I forget who it is. It's like oh gosh, I should have had this ready for you. But there's another stadium that is just slightly larger as far as seating that has held a Super Bowl recently.
Okay,
it might even be a newer stadium, but to the point, that it still could work for that. If you did just put a dome on it, you could still attract a Super Bowl there, right? It's Chicago.
You know what's funny is,
to your point, the lake and stuff, and the views.
You're on it, because that was the thing. I mean, the most recent time I was there for the season 100 opener. It was freaking ridiculous. I spent it was a bad game, but even just the tickets, I think I spent $700 to get as far back. I would have fallen off the back of the stadium if I had moved any far back. So
I've been there. I know it's like the walk downhill is like this.
Yes.
It's like this.
Yes, but the funny part is, even with that, the view is still solid. You have the lake just over your shoulder. I don't know. It was just a really sensational, cool experience. And that kind of goes to where I'm going to. Even if, again, let's be real here. The Bears, there's a reason they're going with Arlington Heights. There's a reason the bid's been put out. They're not staying in Soldier Field if we're just being honest here. But let's just play the game that if they were. Putting a dome on Soldier Field, in my opinion, it's just sacrimonious. I guess maybe not sacrimonious is not the right word, but it's an oxymoron. The whole idea of what the Chicago Bears football is built around is tough, cold weather games. And I know we talk about, Aldo and Tooch and Dan were talking about, is that really a factor? I mean, you can look at games recently. I mean, I think about back in 2018 when the Rams were red hot and decided to come to Chicago, and it just looked like they were stuck in the mud. You have these scenarios where that natural grass just slows down these turf teams. And to sit there and say, we're just going to make it comfy, for whose benefit? The Chicago Bears have always played in this cold weather. It's one of your advantages. I tell you, as somebody like go look at the Miami Dolphins. They play it to their advantage all the time. They have their home record is always positive.
It's so disgusting down there. If I go down to Miami in November, I am turning into a pile of head urine. I mean, it's exactly sweating into a pile.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. They let away teams come down there and just melt. They literally, I don't mean to get too deep into the weeds here, but go watch Dolphins football.
Oh,
they have their home team in the shade.
That's an actual advantage.
Yeah, like it's legitimately bad. So I look at it and say that putting a dome on Soldier Field just feels not the right way to go.
Well, and that begs the next question. When would they open the dome? So are they going to open the dome? So either way, stay there, move to Arlington Heights. Are they going to open the dome on those cold, berry, winter nights where it's 9 degrees, where, I've been in plenty of those games? No, they're not going to let snow come in the stadium and then close it up and have to, deal with the mess. So you're not going to even have that. You might as well just make it a dome that doesn't open.
Yeah.
Because you're never going to open it, right? Unless it's a beautiful sunny day, which who cares?
Yeah, well, and that's where, I have to be frank. I don't think I'd like a dome in Chicago. It just doesn't fit my idea of what it should be. But I also understand. It's kind of what the Vikings did. It's, hey, we know the weather sucks here. We want to make it an enjoyable experience. The Colts literally did it, where they built the bridges and the tunnelways to get to Lucas Oil.
The Packers didn't.
No, then and that's the reality. Is look, there's an advantage.
The last team that's going to go dome and leave the Packers the last one to not have a dome.
I know.
No.
So, and that's Cliff brings up a good point here. Like, Jordan, imagine the announcers talking about a retractable dome being open in 0-degree weather against
exactly.
Yeah. So if we get a retractable dome, I don't know, it'd be an interesting topic or idea, but I really think,
why aren't the Bears opening the dome? It's bear weather.
Yeah. So, Cliff, you're adding some good points here. Like you were saying, have the out-of-towners take the train. Let the guests take the train. And I think that that's a fair point. And this is where I'm telling you, I can tell you the good things as a tourist about why Soldier Field is appealing. But I can even concede that, look, it's not the end of the world for me to fly into Chicago, take the metro or some other way to get to Arlington Heights, enjoy the Bears game, potentially stay out there, or just take it right back to downtown and enjoy my day and my time, my weekend there.
Okay. Compare it to Denver, right? Like, you fly into Denver, you land in an airport that's an hour away from Denver. So
yeah,
if you compare it to that, you land in an airport that's less than an hour away from the Bears Stadium. It's really not that bad.
No, you're right, and that's the reality. For example, I'm planning on going to the Dallas game, and it's very much the same situation where the stadium's nowhere close to your airport, so you're renting your car to go up to Jerry World to see the game. And I'll tell you, it robs the experience a little bit. I went to the Tennessee Titans preseason game last year where the stadium's right in downtown. It's a stone's throw away. It's a beautiful experience to be able to just go to downtown and get all your entertainment there. But I will concede that is just going away. As a California liver, I'll tell you, if you're trying to go to SoFi, it's not in Hollywood. It's not in downtown LA. It's quite far away, and it's an experience where, hey, you take your car, you take an Uber, you go there, you ride the bus, ride the train, go see a game at SoFi, and then you're back in LA. And
how far is it from LA?
Downtown central LA, probably 45 minutes to over an hour. Yeah. And this is
no more than that for the Bears. Yeah.
So I tend to agree. And again, for the people that may have been coming in late, I'll kind of just pull up that window again of the map that you pulled up so wonderfully. Let me go ahead and get that up here. Where are you at, picture? Let's see. Forgive
Where's
me.
Tooch?
Where's Tooch? Yeah, I know. I need a
Jordan. Great job tonight doing this yourself, man.
No. I appreciate it. Thank you. So this is as I said, for the people coming in late, and Shorty here did such a wonderful job kind of outlining in color the property that ultimately would be in play for a stadium. This is what I can't get over this. It's just how massive it is, and the fact that you can build that stadium, you can build eateries, restaurants, enormous amounts of parking,
the food.
shopping plazas. I mean, and this is really what it gets down to. It's like, yeah, but what does that matter if I just want to go see a Bears game? Well, it matters because all of this funding, and yes, we'd all love it to hit our pockets, of course, but all this funding hits the Chicago Bears and the McCaskies' pockets. And maybe I'm just being overly optimistic, but what that means to me is that this money can then be funneled into continuing to renovate the, Hallis Hall. And I know it just got the renovation with Ryan Pace.
Well,
it can
just not to interrupt you, but for example, it may be the reason why the Bears never wanted to pay to have an executive general manager like they finally let Poles hire. And I'm sorry, I'm losing his name from
Ian Cunningham.
Ian Cunningham. So they, Pace. I think it was what was his name that went to Indy that wanted the same thing, and they never gave it to him. Well, it's probably because they didn't have the funding for it, because they're paying rent on a place that they should own.
Absolutely. All that revenue that comes into the Bears, I mean, they're ultimately splitting with the Park District, and you eliminate that. And then this is where I said, I think I'm getting a little optimistic, but that money that's lining their pockets, you're hoping that some portion of that goes back into the team. And I mean, as I mentioned kind of a couple nights ago, coaches are free. I shouldn't say free, but coaches, there's no cap on your coaching spending. Mm-hmm. So if you want to go hire the best trainers, the best, strength coaches, you want to add an offensive line coach and 2 assistant offensive line coaches, anybody that you throw enough of money at a particular individual, and you offer them the opportunity to come to the Mecca of the Midway. And correct. Why would they say no to that?
And you take, for example, the other teams, like let's say the Cowboys, who Jerry Jones' business adventures are in oil and other things, and he puts that into his team, and he's able to afford a $2 billion stadium, whereas the Bears now have to go probably to get public funding to get this done, which is going to peeve off a lot of people, but it's what's going to have to happen because they don't have the money from their own resources from not owning their own stadium. So if they're able to take all that land that you see there and subsidize it out and get rent from it, that's going to be their secondary business. That's going to give them the capital to keep their team, hopefully the next step ahead.
Oh, certainly. Absolutely. Okay, so let's bring this.
But I want to talk about the food too. Like if you go to the current Soldier Field, the food there is absolute crap. I mean, I'm an Italian beef connoisseur. I know anyone who knows me that's watching this right now is laughing because like I love Italian beefs. And I've been to probably 100 Bears games. And when they opened the new stadium, I got their Italian beef. It was crap. Like, why isn't there a Portillo's there? Why isn't there a Lou Malnati's Pizza in frickin' Soldier Field? People are flying in from LA to watch a Rams game against the Bears, and they want to get some Chicago food, and they're stuck with this crappy Italian beef or this crappy piece of pizza or a $13 beer. Another thing, side note, is I'm sorry, I'm ashamed to say this, but I own Falcons tickets because at the time the Bears were terrible. It was like the Trestman Fox era. And I bought these tickets like right after they went to the Super Bowl and lost to the Patriots. And they were $500 a PSL. I got the tickets, 2 tickets for $140 a seat, or for $170 a seat, so $140 for both, times however many games. And the price has gone down since I've owned them. And if I go to a game, Jordan, I bought, at a Falcons game, I bought a bottled water. I'm not kidding. A bottle of water, a beer, a cheeseburger, and a chicken fingers basket, which comes with French fries, for $13. $13 at the Falcon Stadium here.
So I laugh because I've never heard of that in any stadium.
That's one beer at Soldier Field.
Yes, it is.
If the Bears can gain money from the other venues, from the properties that are on there, I mean, hell, they might be able to put a Portillo's on the property that they paid them for the land for, and people can go to Portillo's there and then get a freaking Portillo's in the stadium if they do it correctly, if they use their brains correctly. And then now you're getting all these tourists that are actually eating Chicago food within the stadium.
I love this. No. I love this because, I mean, don't get me wrong. I certainly am passionate about this, and I want what's ultimately best for the team we all root for. And we haven't even talked about the fact that right now there's just no way that the NFL is even offering a Super Bowl bid to Chicago. And this is, you can't put a dome on it all you want. They're not doing it with 64,000 people. It's just not happening.
If they said dome tomorrow on Soldier Field, there still wouldn't be a bid for the Super Bowl within 5 years.
And Chicago's a desirable place to be.
Yes.
And so to sit there and say that you're going to stay at Soldier Field. I mean, this is where I've continued to come back to. I know there's a lot of people that don't like Mayor Lightfoot. That's a whole separate issue. But this entire thing just seems like it's a step too late.
Right.
A little too late. Like you're posturing to sit here and say, well, at least we tried.
Well, hold on a second. Why don't you offer me why don't you just sell me the damn property, and why don't you give me the McCormick Place 2 that's over there that nobody's using, and then we can take all that and we can sell it to me. Why are you trying to rent it to me? Jeez.
Yeah, so you can have Kanye come down and ruin the field on a concert and everything.
Yeah, all these people coming in and just destroying the grass. Like, we're going to play a game on it.
I mean, yeah, nobody wants to talk about it. I mean, the Bears at Soldier Field certainly aren't the worst field, but you have quite a few complaints that come in about how bad the field is. It's just.
I used to be the biggest proponent against fake turf, but again, the Falcons, as a season ticket holder, they have draft parties. I get to go there and go to the. I don't even expect the Bears ever to do this to their fans. I would love to know the feedback on fans like here on the chat site that actually have season tickets. Like, what are their benefits that they give you? Because the amount of benefits that the Falcons give as a season ticket holder is just astronomical. And one of them is that you can go to the draft party and you can walk anywhere on the field. You can go in the locker room. You can go anywhere. You can go into the weight room on the field. I got to walk on that turf on the Mercedes-Benz Stadium field, and it was. I wanted to start sprinting like I was playing football, and then run as fast as I could, and then jump and pretend I was being hit and like land on it and feel what it felt like. But I didn't want to look stupid, But it was that like comfortable to play on. I'm for that after seeing it now. It really is. Other than maybe getting those particles in your eyes, I think it is a better way to go as far as the garbage that they're putting on Soldier Field. I mean, my goodness, it's just slipping and sliding all over the place. It's terrible.
Well, and that's kind of what we're talking about. You get the Super Bowl bid, you get the opportunity to get this state-of-the-art technology, whether it be turf, that's something that you're talking about, kind of getting food and drink in Soldier Field. And we haven't even talked about what a nightmare it is to go down to the central level to kind of circle around and get your beer and stuff. Because, I mean, for those that haven't been to newer stadiums, they have multiple food and drink locations at multiple places. So you're not sitting there going down to like level 3, walking halfway across to get your
It's almost like just replicate at every level. It's like the same thing every level. Yeah.
Yeah. It's just, and that really goes back to it too, is Soldier Field, as much as it's been renovated, it is an old stadium, and you can only teach a dog so many new tricks. And that's kind of where we're at here. And this, I mean, we can kind of eventually get into the football talks here beyond just Soldier Field and the stadiums, but in the game of football, in life, we're always trying to find new avenues, new ways to create new bridges to new opportunities. And you don't want to ever lock yourself into a position where, hey, we've tapped out, we've maximized. There's nothing else we can do here. And that is really where the Bears have found themselves in the modern era with Soldier Field.
Yeah.
They have to expand to get more revenue, to create a bigger fan base, more opportunities, Super Bowl bids, state-of-the-art stadiums. And I'd say this, and I mentioned this earlier, like I said a couple days ago, but I've been to SoFi Stadium. I've been to Allegiant Stadium, that's Vegas Raiders and Chargers and Rams stadiums. The two newest. I haven't been to Minnesota. I know they've got a new one there. But the Bears definitely need and should want to be in on that new craze of, wow, look where the Bears are playing. And I believe that somebody had mentioned that the Raiders, people that built the Raiders stadium are actually the ones contracted at the moment to build this stadium. And I mean, let me be honest here. Nothing's quite like SoFi as far as I've seen. That the video board that they have there is phenomenal, and just a very different stadium and very cool in a lot of respects. They're actually their press boxes or their suites are actually at the ground level, so you're watching Aaron Donald at the same exact ground level. It's not up, so it's very unique in that respect.
I've heard a lot of things about that stadium.
It's freaky cool. But Allegiant was awesome too. Allegiant just felt to me much more like a true traditional football stadium. Very traditional video boards, 1 at 8 each end, but still brand new, state of the art, really cool. Had the Al Davis torch there. The reason I bring this up is you only can imagine whatever they'll do for this stadium with the Bears. There's so much rich history with the franchise. What statues are placed there? Are they going to have something related to Walter? Just something to do with sweetness, to do with the 85 Bears? What type of memorabilia will they have? It's just, this is what life is breathed into the franchise if they move out from that old maximized no room left to grow stadium. And I mean, we could keep going on and on about this, but they're going to have another section ready for the 2023 Bears. Yeah. And we're going to get there. I think,
by the way, I wore this just for you, the 2006 NFC Championship.
Yeah, God, that was
NFC
awesome.
Champions. Just for you to segue into your next.
Thank you.
For later when you get to that.
Yeah, we'll get to it. I mean, and I guess what we'll do is because like I said, I really enjoy talking about the stadium with you because it's a topic that is talked about, but I like, and you know this, and this is why I think we brought you on, because we could do this for hours, just getting deep into the weeds about all these topics. It's what you and I really kind of get down to, the brass nuts about it. So I guess I'll put a cap on it. At least for me, my stance, I'd love to hear your final one if you have a final take on it. I don't see a scenario where it literally good for anybody except maybe the city of Chicago. And we're talking about city officials. Outside of that one small little filtered funneled section, I don't see how staying in Soldier Field benefits anybody. Fans, the organization, the players, Super Bowl, tourists. I don't see how it's beneficial there. So to me, it's almost like signed, sealed, and delivered. And I promise I'll end with this. I mentioned that Mayor Lightfoot had felt like it was a little too late. There was some posturing early on about, I think that they genuinely thought, you keep on bitching about this stadium. Why don't you go ahead and do something about it? And until you do something about it, screw off. And they were kind of being prideful and boasting, posturing. And then all of a sudden the McCaskies put the bid on Arlington Heights. And it was like, oh, they're serious.
What do we do now?
Yeah, and so now they're tap dancing and trying
somebody call someone.
yeah, exactly. And so I think but that's the problem, is it is too little too late. And you let the Bears walk out and see what else was out there. And they got wooed by the pretty neighbor up the street in Arlington Heights. And all of a sudden we're going to see, and they'll always be the Chicago Bears, but they'll be the Chicago Bears, based out of Arlington Heights, and I'm okay with that.
Well, to add to that, your final point is that they've also spent a lot of money. The Bears have to have architects come in and figure out planning and zoning and this and that and other things. I mean, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars beyond what they have already put in on the bid, which they would obviously get back, but they've already put up, $500,000 at least worth of their own money in research to be done on the development of this property and so on and so forth. So they're not just going to dump that money for nothing. So to me, it's an absolute, I mean, like you said, they came in way too. If they wanted to keep the Bears in Chicago, just sell them the damn property.
Yep.
Give it to them. Let them make their own decisions there. And they won't do that because they want to play broke all the time. Oh, we're bankrupt. We need your money, And then they'll turn you upside down and shake all the damn change out of your pocket every chance that they have. It's one of the most expensive places to live. So move out of there. Go to Arlington Heights. Get your own stadium. Own that property. Sell off pieces or lease it.
Yeah,
Make, another business venture out of that. that's not your own income, that you can be a Dallas Cowboys type of organization as far as what you spend on your team and how you're able to spend it.
Absolutely. Awesome. Well, I think that I hope, I'm looking at the audience here. I mean, we see Brian Reberg here saying that, first heard the idea of moving to Arlington Heights, completely against it due to nostalgia. But after this conversation, I'm really hoping that that's kind of the sentiment, that at least hopefully we broke ground, pun intended, on having the audience move a little bit forward in the discussion and where their feelings are about it. And like I said, on a
Excellent
personal
point,
level,
Brian.
yeah, on a personal level, you and I both, I think we feel like they should be moving to Arlington Heights. And so, again, the comment section, you're always welcome to kind of bark back on that if you disagree. But
in 10 years, we're all going to be like, wow, the Bears are, I mean, if everything goes correctly, it'll be like the stadium that Justin Fields built.
Yeah,
absolutely. They'll call it that. Literally, they will. So let it happen. It'll be all right, everyone.
Absolutely. So let's kind of jump into, I guess you would say, the news of the week, if you will, which was the N'Keal Harry trade, a 2024 7th round pick for former 32nd overall first rounder, very last pick of the first round out of Arizona State. New England Patriots drafted him in 2019. Wide receiver, ex-archetype, big guy, 6'2", 225, N'Keal Harry. What are your thoughts on the acquisition of N'Keal Harry?
I think I just said it right there. I mean, everything you just said. I mean, a 7th round pick 2 years from now, if you look at his film, and I've seen a lot of the stuff that you posted on him on your Twitter feed, Jordan, and the crackback block. I mean, come on. Who's going to go take out Myles Garrett like that? I would be terrified of Myles Garrett if I was a wide receiver in high school. I was afraid of hitting the linebacker. Like that crackback block, always kind of like, can I do that right? Like this guy, he nailed him many times in that game.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the first.
Right. So he's a good blocker. He actually, for his size and lack of speed, gets open pretty well.
Yeah, I'll give you that.
So when you look at his quarterbacks, okay, it all comes down to quarterbacks. Tom Brady 1 year, rookie year. What's Tom Brady going to love him in his rookie year? No. Next year, Cam Newton. I mean, enough said. At that stage in his career. The next year, another rookie, or he has a rookie. He has
Mac Jones.
Mac Jones played well as a rookie, but you can't expect him to have all, to be, they're not going to be on the same page as a rookie quarterback like that. So, but he requested the trade before that when Cam Newton was his quarterback. So I think that the change of scenery with him, coming to a new scheme, a new offense where he's going to be using some of those blocking skills. And he's also a pretty good, he's shifty enough to be able to get open. I think for everyone talking about not getting a wide receiver in the draft, which I'm so sick of hearing, it's just enough. Please stop. We have the receivers. We can do this with the receivers that we have. Velus Jones plus I think Treston Ebner is going to be catching a lot of balls too, more than people think. Now you add N'Keal Harry to this, and you're talking about somebody actually competing for Equanimeous St. Brown's position. So who's going to win that?
No, it's a good point. And, I promise I mostly agree with you. I'll take a little bit of the opposite side to balance it out because I have some questions about the process, the decision for him specifically as a player. But at the end of the day, too, I can't necessarily knock handing over a Trenton Gill or an Elijah Hicks for a former first-round receiver who – and here's the thing. I mean, the draft pedigree only means so much, and this kind of goes to it, is everybody says, well, we got a former first-round pick for a 7th. And I'm like, yeah, well, once you're drafted, your position really doesn't mean anything.
Yeah,
what you do to produce. But I will say this, as much as I can say that and be negative Nancy about how his lack of production is a little worrisome, he was a consensus top 40 to 50 pick by any evaluator you want. That's, Mike Renner to Daniel Jeremiah to Bucky Brooks to Matt Miller. You name it.
Well, the question is why?
Yeah, and that's the thing, and that's what we get to. And I will admit that, and there's a reason why if you've talked about my Twitter feed, I'm not including many. I think I've had one ASU highlight because the thing is, we can talk all day at night about what he did in college. He was killer in college. I'll never deny that. But that was college. What are you doing in the pro game? And that's the real question. But I want to kind of elaborate on that as I always tend to do. Let's get into the weeds and analysis about this N'Keal Harry trade. I think that a lot of people assume that just because you're a first-round receiver and Bill Belichick's the best coach in the world and he picks you, you're going to be Randy Moss or you're going to be Wes Welker, you're going to be Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman. People, I'll just give you one name as a guy. We could go down the list of like Chad Jackson or any of the other guys that they've drafted high at receiver that haven't worked out, down to who's the receiver from Marshall that I'm thinking of? But they drafted a receiver in the second round out of Marshall a few years ago that didn't work out either. But the one I'm thinking of is, because this matters to me, they picked up, towards the end of his career, but they picked up Chad Johnson, Chad Ochocinco at a certain point.
Yes.
And it wasn't like he was just Terrell Owens with the Buffalo Bills at the end or anything like that. He still had juice and couldn't figure out a way to get Chad Johnson to produce. It was his worst year. Chad Johnson came out after and said it was living in hell playing in that scheme. Not because he didn't enjoy winning, not because he didn't like Tom, just that it is more demanding on receivers than any playbook he'd had to deal with. There's not a lot of freestyling. It's all about, hey, you're playing with Tom Brady, the best quarterback to ever play the game. You need to be on time. Tempo, timing, spacing, route running. It needs to be precise. And you're talking about, I love Chad Johnson. This is a guy that was kind of, and this is why he was so successful, making his money doing whatever the hell he wanted to do as he was sitting there posterizing different DBs, saying how much he was smoking them as
on Twitter.
Yeah, like this
in the
is
game.
And you're talking about an established professional that couldn't get it together in New England. And yes, we can look at Randy Moss, a Hall of Famer that did. Absolutely. We can see it on both sides. But it doesn't surprise me. And this is the other thing, too. When you actually think about Tom Brady, and yes, we can even talk Cam Newton and Mac Jones a little bit. These quarterbacks are guys that haven't traditionally won with big, huge X receivers. When you think about Tom Brady, I'd say his biggest receiver was probably Randy Moss.
Yeah.
Randy Moss was a burner. Yes, we can talk about Gronk and all that, but these are tight ends. We're talking about receivers. The guys that have really broken out of there, Wes Welker, Danny Amendola, Julian Edelman.
Most of them are receivers that he made.
Yeah, well, and then we're talking about Troy Brown and a few other guys. Guys that weren't these big, hulking X receivers that even lacked a little speed and refinement. This is the thing that we don't consider. And like I said, we could take this in so many different directions. But with N'Keal Harry, one of the things that you touched on that I think is so important is, one thing is people want to pet, Paul Bunyan, the guy where all of a sudden he's 6'8" and he's 240. And I'm like, no, he's not some huge DK Metcalf guy, but he's 6'2", almost 6'3" at the combine, 620 or 225. For a guy that big, this is what you touched on, which I love. It's a part of his game I have to admire. Typically with these bigger receivers, you see that they struggle with sinking their hips and getting in and out of routes.
Yes.
And he has found a way with his size to still be, again, I'm not telling you that he's, Devontae Smith or any Chris Olave with route running, but he's a guy that runs routes better than most guys his size you would expect.
I agree, yes.
And then you add in the physical aspects, which this is where, as much as I don't love the process, people say, well, why don't you love the process? Because I think it's more of a half measure. You're kind of throwing the end of the second round and hoping that you land a star that was a former first-round pick. And that's Ryan Poles' way. I'm not saying that's the worst way or the only way to fail it, but I just think maybe take a bigger swing at like a Denzel Mims, a guy that's really electric. He's big and a ball winner, but he's also electric. DK Metcalf, I know nobody wants to talk about that. Maybe we'll save that for even a future show with you and I, where I've got a lot of.
We can talk about that for a day.
Yeah, I've got a lot of love for the Seattle Seahawks back in the Legion of Boom days, and kind of really.
I really do too. Yeah.
But so that's really the issue there. But when I think about N'Keal Harry, the one thing I can't deny, and like I said, it could be Denzel Mims, it could be DK Metcalf. I don't care. end of the day, it's the same brass tacks. The Bears at this moment, outside of Equinemius St. Brown, do not have a true X receiver. An X receiver being that 3-by-1, he's on the backside of the play, running the backside dig, one-on-one, man coverage, utilizing his size.
Jump ball.
Yes, jump ball, outmuscle the defender, attack the ball at the catch point. Yes. They didn't have that. And they had Mooney trying to run those in Allen Robinson's absence last year, and it just didn't work. So you're talking about a Justin Fields who needs to throw the ball deep, has incredible accuracy, wants to throw the ball deep. Go get him a guy that's going to sit there and go, don't worry, just throw it up. I'll turn a 50-50 into an 80-20. And that to me is the value of what N'Keal Harry can bring.
I wrote this down as a note and read, poor man's Allen Robinson.
It's really not a bad game. He's a little faster than A-Rob too. That's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. And,
yeah, a little bit faster.
Yeah.
but he's also underdeveloped. So, back to the I wanted to make another point too, that not everyone succeeds in New England.
No, exactly.
Just because you're in New England doesn't mean you're going to be a superstar. So you can have it might not be the right fit for you in New England. Then you go to the Bears. You're in a different scheme. Seriously, for a player like him, I can imagine when he gets a crackback block on a defensive end like that, it probably fires him up so much. He's like, pass him the ball on the next play. He's going to catch it, like that kind of guy. Because if he gets that, if he's that good at blocking, I can imagine it fires him up for the next play. You know what I mean?
Oh, absolutely.
So he can be someone that could play the role of an Allen Robinson in the future. I mean, maybe this year, hopefully this year, that'd be nice. But I mean, hell, if we compare it to Allen Robinson last year, I mean, if he did better than that, that'd be great.
And I'll even talk about, his blocking. Everybody's kind of mentioned that because they saw a couple PFF graphics that said he was the best at blocking, and he is a very good blocker. It's funny, you were a former receiver, I was a former D-end, and I had mentioned on Twitter that as much as you were scared to hit those D-ends, those were the biggest pains of the ass, because I'm sitting there trying to deal with an offensive tackle, and out of nowhere, I've got a little skinny shit receiver that's ear-holing me and blowing me up, and it was never fun. But the idea there is he's big enough to be an impact blocker. And if anybody wants to go into it in a future episode, I can talk about a guy like Justin Jefferson or Cooper Kupp or any of these guys that, what people want to talk about is the Bears are going to be running a Shanahan-style offense. And that's really a conflated and bloated term that nobody really – it's wide zone. It's wide zone. And there are different ways to play it. And that's really what I think we need to consider is who knows what Luke Getsy will bring to it. But let's just step away from the Shanahan thing for a minute and just talk about McVay, who also comes from that tree. A little bit of the Gruden tree, a little bit of the Shanahan tree. And what's really kind of taken the league by storm, and this really even goes back to Greg Roman and Lamar Jackson with the Ravens when they beat the Rams and forced McVay to change his offense. You're now playing these wide zone schemes in closer formations, more enclosed. So you're bringing your receivers in tighter. And what that allows you to kind of use these bigger receivers as quasi-tight ends, if you will.
Right.
I don't like people calling him a tight end, and not everybody needs to be a tight end. I promise the Bears have enough. But it's those situations where all of a sudden you're asking him to ear-hole down block, crack back a block on a D end to get to the second level and square off an undersized linebacker in the modern game where you need those fast coverage guys that aren't hulking. And he's a willing blocker. And you look at guys like Cooper Kupp that affect the run game in the way that they do, and it adds so much value to your team. And really what kind of the magic sauce is beyond just the run blocking of a guy like Cooper Kupp is the fact that you can move him around the field. Sometimes he's in close, he's in the slot, he's out wide. You've clearly seen that with N'Keal Harry. He can play from outside to inside. And we're talking about a league now that really values the power slot. These guys that, I don't mean to get too deep here, but when we talk about nickel corners, in my opinion, are some of the hardest positions on the field. They have to cover the entire route tree from inside. They have to fit the run. You typically had guys like Kenny Moore, like Bryce Callahan, Tavon Young, these smaller guys. And what's happened is the league is always looking for advantages. So how do we beat a small, shifty little corner? And again, these small, shifty little corners were brought in to cover the Julian Edelmans, the Golden Tates, those type of players. How do we beat those shifty corners? Well, I'll tell you what. Why don't we just put big 6'3", 220 out there, out muscle them? And so this is a situation where, okay, now you have a guy that's willing to block from the slot. He's bigger than most slot defenders, and he can post them up. And he can be your backside 3-by-1 guy that you're throwing a backside dig to or a fade ball and telling him, hey, just go up and go get it. And I'm not telling you that this is all going to happen. That's the thing. We have to wait and see. But the reality is, the one thing we can't deny is that stuff did not actively exist on the Bears roster. And that was why I was so high on getting a guy like an Alec Pierce or a George Pickens. And I'm okay with Kyler Gordon. I'm happy with Brisker. So that's done. We don't need to argue about that. But the reality is you have a hole there, and it needed to be addressed. And to sit there and tell me that Equanimeous St. Brown is going to be your answer there, I'm just not willing to buy it. And I'm glad that you got Ryan Poles that's taking a shot. I mean, let me put it this way. There's a lot of ESB, Equanimeous St. Brown fans that go, he's the guy. And I have my own theory about why he's on the roster. If it doesn't tell you that he felt the need to go trade a 7th-round pick to go get a guy in N'Keal Harry, that ESB may not be the guy after, open mini camp, this is that sign that they felt that they needed competition to fill that spot. And I'm happy about it.
100%.
So I guess let me
agree.
Let me touch on the I guess you could say the negatives on the N'Keal Harry trade. I believe, I could be wrong, and if anybody in the audience wants to go do a little bit of research, I believe that his fifth year option was already declined. So there's a little bit of a negative there, because if you still had the option to sign him to that, I guess theoretically what I'm offering is that if we had got him a year earlier, you'd have the option to let him play cheap. And if he outperformed, you could sign him to that 5th-year option. But I believe that was already declined. So it's a little bit of that's kind of my only issue, is that you're giving a 7th-round pick, you're giving a Trenton Gill for 2 years. And this guy, if he doesn't perform, sure, it's no problem. You give away your 7th-round pick and he's not on the roster. But the upside there is if he does perform, you can sign him to a big deal, and the Bears will have money next year to do that. So I also think it was probably one of the better spots that he could go when you actually think about it. This time of the year, this time of the calendar, trying to go to a different team, you need a receiver room that's a little empty of that archetype. So he fits in there as well.
Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
So I mean, overall, I'm pretty. I think when it happened at first, I was a little down, because part of it, and this is kind of the draft thing too. Like, well, no, I had my guy. I wanted you to pick this name. And it's like, well, yeah, just because you want Denzel Mims, Jordan, doesn't mean that N'Keal Harry is a bad player. So I think that N'Keal Harry has the opportunity to play well. I think that he's shown some glimpses. I mean, I don't have any film cut up tonight, but if anybody's interested, we did Dan and Aldo Bare Their Souls, and it was really Tooch and Aldo Bare Their Souls. Went over a few clips of N'Keal Harry there, if you're interested in seeing him. But, I mean, he has some plays where he's not only just blocking, he's going up and snagging back shoulder fades. For his first touchdown, I think it was against the Jets, he's literally out muscling a nickel corner, like we talked about, one of the best nickel corners. And Chris Harris.
By the way, there's some pretty crappy passes in there too.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing too, is, I mean, people want to discount that. He played with Tom Brady his first year. And look, I'm not telling you that Tom Brady's not trying to give an opportunity to a young guy. But with these veterans, they don't have time to try to bring the rookie along. It's really like, hey, Rook, catch up, get up to speed, earn my trust by doing the right thing day in and day out, work hard, be the guy that I can come to rely on when it comes time and it matters. And he had 1 year with Brady. It didn't work out. And then ultimately he came to a guy in Cam Newton that at that point in his career, his arm was not the same. And then they looked strong starting out because McDaniels did a wonderful job being the architect of that offense to be this QB run game, option game offense for Cam Newton. And they were succeeding. They started out really hot. And then Cam got COVID, never came back the same. And all of a sudden you've got your 2nd-year first-round pick that isn't gelling with the quarterback. And again, Cam's out with COVID, so now he's got different quarterbacks coming in, Jarrett Stidham. It just wasn't. And then I think maybe it was even Hoyer that came. I think Stidham came in and did so poorly that Hoyer got put in against the Chiefs game. So he's got, we talk about, oh man, Darnell Mooney's such a savage for having to deal with multiple quarterbacks. Well, guess what? We also have to give it to N'Keal Harry that, look, it's not easy to play with multiple quarterbacks. And he had to do it his 2nd year. And then you come in with Mac Jones, and look, I don't know how many people feel about Mac Jones.
Well, it's been every year for him, all 3 years.
Yeah, well, and I'm a big Mac Jones fan. I don't know how people feel about Mac Jones. I tend to think he's got some unique skills in his game, but even then, we're talking about.
He reminds me of a Tom Brady 2.0.
Yeah, honestly, and I'm glad you're saying it, not me, but I see that in him. And I'm telling you, I was watching preseason last year because I'm watching Fields and watching Lawrence, watching Lance. I'm sitting there watching Mac Jones going,
timing.
Yes.
It's like Tom Brady timing.
Well, because this is the thing, man. This is why I love talking with you, because I know everybody wants to talk Bears. We'll promise we'll continue back on the Bears, but I like talking about the NFL. When you have guys like Justin Fields, and this is no knock on him, it's just flavors, it's different styles. Justin Fields has been the best athlete on the entire field his entire life, which means that when the pocket breaks down or doesn't look good, he's like, I'm just going to get on my horse and I run 4-4 and I'll just get around the corner and score a 65-yard touchdown. And that's cool. That's the Robert Griffin effect. We love it. That's the Michael Vick. But then you have guys like Joe Burrow or Mac Jones or Peyton Manning or Tom Brady or Drew Brees, where they're really not the best athlete. And they're not the tallest. They're not the fastest. And if they want to get to the NFL, they have to win a different way.
Right.
And again, it's not that Fields is winning wrong. It's not that Mac is winning wrong. But when I watched Mac Jones as a rookie, he has pocket presence of a veteran. This guy feels pocket pressure like none other. Stepping up at the right time, stepping out at the right time. I mean, yes, he had some ugly rookie mistakes, and I showed those against the Colts game with Eberflus's defense. But you're seeing a guy that typically knows when to dump it off to the outlet, when to take off and run. I mean, it was phenomenal.
All those things, yes. How much of that was coaching, though? Like, if you put, for example, Fields in that offense, would Josh McDaniels have played it the same way with him?
So,
like, the Nagy experience with Fields was just such a freaking disaster. You almost can't even count it. I mean, you put him in the. I watched, the first game of Josh Allen, and he was put all in the right situations. I mean, he didn't have the greatest game, but he had a hell of a lot better stats than Justin Fields did. I tell you that much.
Yep.
And the fact that somebody posted a meme of they took their child and just grabbed him by the leg and tossed him in a pool.
Yeah.
And it was like, that's what the Bears did to Justin Fields. It's like, that's exactly what they did. Swim, buddy.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I mean, I'll kind of add to this because I see Cornelius Squalls putting in here. Mac Jones had the benefit of one of the best play callers in football, Josh McDaniels, calling plays for him. Yeah. I agree. And to answer your question, Shorty, and I think it's a good one. It's funny you say that now. I've got my own little love affair where I always will say I think Justin Fields probably should have been a Panther, and I don't know. I kind of have.
He should have been a Panther. I don't know why. I don't know how he's a Bear.
Yeah. I mean, and look, I'm not mad. I'm a Bears fan. I'm happy he's a Bear. But the thing is, I actually had such fears that the Patriots would come up and grab Justin Fields because he was slipping, he was falling, and I'm thinking, oh my God, if they get Justin Fields, the league is in trouble.
I know.
And the reason for that, and it's a different game. Look, I mean, McDaniels is a fantastic play caller. You asked would Justin Fields have been able to do some of those things. I don't know. This is the thing, and that's why it's different flavors. Mac Jones can run the quick game. That long release of Justin Fields and being able I hate talking like this because a lot of Bears fans get so defensive. I love Justin Fields. I'm not against him, but players are good at different things. Justin has never been a 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 pure progression guy. That's just not who he is. He is, and this comes from being the best athlete. I have 1, maybe 2, then a check down. If not, I've been told just get the hell out of the pocket and run. You're a good enough athlete, you can make a play. And then he's got that long wind-up release where he's got the elbow kink and he's bringing it up. And I know we've seen some of that fixed.
He comes out to here and then he brings all the way back. And it's waterway territory. And then he tries to throw it. But that's been corrected from what I can see.
Yeah, some of that's been improved. But I'm not sure if let me put it this way. If you put him in the Mac Jones offense, I don't think it looks very pretty. Now, is the question, can Josh McDaniels craft an offense that would have worked for him? 1,000%. And that's where I'm at. And that's where I was so scared that if the Patriots had traded up for Justin Fields, you would have seen the Cam Newton offense on steroids because that was really the test. They had the Tom Brady offense. It morphed from 2 tight ends to heavy run game to airing it out with Randy Moss. And then they had that 1 year before Mac where this was their chance with an athletic quarterback. What does it look like when it's not a pure passer?
Right.
And you saw the Patriots, led by Cam Newton, run out the gate hot.
Right.
Hot. And, of course, it ended with Cam got COVID and some other things happened. But it was a scenario, and they were in cap hell. Nobody wants to talk about that. They didn't have a lot of talent on the roster and things of that nature. But
$1 million contract for Cam.
yeah, well, and that was the thing. Like, people don't realize Tom Brady left because there was no players there, and they didn't have money to bring in anybody else.
Right.
That's why they got their ass kicked by the Titans when
Right.
last game. Cam Newton, that offense with the run-first quarterback was phenomenal. And then you say, what if because this is the thing, I mean, and that's where I really thought he should have been a Panther, because that was their next Superman, their next quarterback from Georgia that wears number 1, except he's the evolved Cam. Sure, he's not as big, he's a little slighter, but he's a much better passer. He's a little faster than Cam. Maybe he's not as bruising, but he's still mobile, still a leader.
Well, somewhere along the way, he learned that he wanted to become a pass-first quarterback.
Yep.
And then, whereas Cam Newton was running more in his whole career. So once Fields adopted the pass-first mentality, it put him in a different category.
Yeah. Well, and it's funny you bring that up, and I could be speaking out of turn here, and maybe somebody can fact check me, but I believe it was quarterback coach Ron Veal that was working with Fields as a young adolescent. That there was a time when either Veal had told Fields or vice versa, Fields had told Coach Veal,
Yeah,
I don't.
correct. It is Veal,
Yeah, I don't want to run. I'm sitting here. I want to look. There's a lot of guys that get stereotyped as, hey, they're athletic and they're always just one read and out. And I want to be a quarterback, and then I'll have my legs as a second option. And that's really what you still see now, is a guy that's looking to make a play with his arm. And then if all else breaks down, he'll go ahead and try to take off and run. So, I mean, we're getting a little off topic here, but yes, in the Patriots offense, I think it would have been killer. I think it would have been Cam Newton 2.0, but a lot better.
Well, would he have actually fit in that offense? Would McDaniels have actually adjusted to Fields? Because if you look at McDaniels, offensive coordinator history, you look at Brady, and the pass game has been relied off of those basically quick reads, quick passes, take the shots downfield when you can, kind of a thing. Would he have done that with Fields in his first year? I don't know.
Well,
it's hard to speculate.
Yeah, it absolutely is. But this is the fun about it. That's why we're doing it, because
I know that's what makes it so much fun to talk about.
Yeah, because I think this is the unique thing about it. I totally agree with you. It's largely been a quick game passing offense, very timing and tempo based. But the one thing that we've seen with the Patriots, and this is what I love about the Patriots and why they're successful. We're going to talk about franchises that are really successful. I think the Bears are modeling after. But what the Patriots have done so well, the league is cyclical. And this is why I'm actually happy the Bears defense is moving to a 4-3, because everybody's going to 3-4. That's wonderful. But it's the same thing that happened with the Legion of Boom. Legion of Boom
it goes back and forth. Yeah.
So the thing is
cyclical.
that, yeah.
4-3, 3-4, 4-3, 3-4.
Yeah.
Oh, zone read. Oh, we're going to go to a spread offense. Oh, zone read, spread.
So
3-4,
so
4-3.
So that's the thing, is that the Patriots, what I love about them and Bill Belichick, is that they tend to jive or juke when everybody else is jiving, and jiving when everybody else is juking. And so this is why this is why I think it would have worked with Justin Fields. They've shown a propensity to try and just run the ball down people's throats with Damian Harris. And they've, they had Lawrence Maroney at one point, and they were Ramondre Stevenson as of recently.
Oh, that game last year against the Bills.
Yeah, and then you add that to the fact that they've also shown the ability to run an option offense with Cam Newton and a running quarterback, and all of a sudden it becomes we're going to gash you with Justin's legs, or we're going to gash you up the middle with Ramondre Stevenson and Damian Harris. And then when you're tired of that, hey, Justin, go ahead and hit him 65 yards over the top on a play action.
Yeah, it probably would have worked with a younger quarterback as opposed to Cam, who was, Cam was great in his time, but it's past his time, so it wasn't working for him.
Absolutely.
If you put Fields in the same, it might have, yeah. It's so fun to speculate.
Well, and to the audience here, I'm sure they're like, oh my God, they're talking about the Patriots. But yes, we go down the
We're still talking about Fields. We're still talking about Fields.
Yeah, we go down the rabbit hole where it takes us. So is let me get us to kind of the main topic, and I'll kind of do a little bit of a long diatribe here to enter us into that, and we're going to kind of go deep on the main portion of the show, which is the title of this video: are the 2022 Bears stepping towards or modeling their rebuild, if you will, following in the steps of a top? Let me be honest. I think a lot of people view this as probably the number one ran organization in the league right now. A lot of people I respect feel that way. I'm a little different. I have some unique picks about who I like, but I would easily say even as much as I may disagree with this being a number one team, I can't put them farther than top 5. Yeah. And that's where they're at. And we're talking about the Buffalo Bills. That is who we're speaking of. And it's got so many layers to it that I really want to unwrap here, and we'll try to keep it in somewhat of a concise term. I know it's 11-11 in Chicagoland at the moment. So the thing with the Buffalo Bills is that we're talking about a team right now in the Bears that, oh my goodness, they're in cap hell because of Ryan Pace, and they traded away their star player in Khalil Mack, and they've got this young quarterback, and the receiver room is trash, and they don't have any good players to support Justin Fields, and they hired this defensive coach, and they're running this antiquated defense with 4 down linemen. What are the Bears doing? They're going to be a top 5 pick. They're not supporting their quarterback. And the goal about this is, and Cliff here saying, really, that's saying a lot, Jordan. I hope the Bears can copy the Bills. Well, we're going to talk about it here. I think that what people, and this is where I'm going to take you all in the chat on a little journey as well as Shorty here on where the Bills came from. You're talking about messing with your hair there. I see where the Bears are at. And again, we're early. We need to see how it looks in year 1. But I certainly see, let me put it this way. I see the Bears right now at a crossroads of almost exactly, there's a few differences, but almost exactly where the Buffalo Bills were in Josh Allen year 2, mixed with a little bit of pre-Josh Allen year 1. But there's a lot of eerily similar circumstances that if the Bears and Ryan Poles play this right, it's hard to not see where we're going. So I've kind of teased it long enough. Let me kind of share what I have going here, and I'll explain it as best as I can. So let me bring up.
I was just trying to pull up my stats that I had ready for you.
Yeah, please.
It's more towards the rookie seasons too. But I mean, if you look at their rookie seasons comparatively, they are so similar.
So, and allow me to kind of go on a little diatribe here, but help me out here, Shorty. You can see this PDF, right? This graphic.
Yes, I can.
Okay. So 2017, we're talking about the Buffalo Bills firing Rex Ryan. This is the first year for new GM Brandon Beane. Now, a little bit, like I said, some of these things are a little different. I just want to note them here because it was just very strange. They actually had, I believe it was Ryan Whaley, the GM at the time, or maybe it was Doug Whaley. I'm thinking of Ryan Whalen, Stanford wide receiver. Doug Whaley, the GM at the time, complete the entire draft, and then they fired him a day later and hired Brandon Beane. Like I said, a little strange there, but it was unique.
I remember that. That's quite strange.
Yeah, well, and the reason they did that is the general idea of, hey, we have a year's worth of this scouting staff and this team that scouted this. Let's just have the GM orchestrate the team and the draft and building it, and then we'll go ahead and get rid of him and try to put a new GM in place, which they said is unique because
every team does that. They get rid of their scouts because the scouts have been scouting all year long. New regime comes in. They're not going to fire their scouts. They're the ones been scouting for them. So
exactly,
they use them, then they move on. They get their own scouts. Yeah. And
so a little background here. So Brandon Beane hired the day after the draft in 2017. However, the head coach, Sean McDermott, had been there months before. They fired Rex Ryan in December. They hired Sean McDermott in January. Ultimately, that was the Tyrod Taylor year. They actually got into the playoffs in the wild card off of a 9-7 season. That was, if anybody remembers, that was a time when the Cincinnati Bengals had beaten, I think it was the Ravens, and because they beat the Ravens, it got the Bills into the wild card. There was jokes about like, hey, Andy Dalton can come get free Buffalo Wild Wings or whatever. Whenever he goes. Yeah. So that was that year. Tyrod Taylor, they go 9-7. And they ended up losing in the wild card to Jacksonville. That was the year Jacksonville was going on fire with Blake Bortles and the New England-Jacksonville game. But anyways, that was kind of the first year under Bean. Now, I wanted to talk about some of these bullets below. So and we're going to kind of go through this slow. I want to make sure that this really sinks in. So when Brandon Bean took over the franchise and played that first year, he then decided to let Stephon Gilmore, the guy that was seen as one of the best corners in the league, just got traded for a 5th-round pick to the Panthers from New England, signed a big deal to be in Indy this year. One of the up and rising top of the game corners, let him walk in free agency. And he was a 1st-round pick. Let Robert Woods, 2nd-round pick out of USC, walk. Everybody knows Robert Woods now was a fantastic player for the Rams, and he's now with the Titans. E.J. Manuel, 1st-round quarterback that never panned out. Corey Graham, famous safety corner that played with the Ravens and the Eagles. And then at the time, one of the more competitive nickel cornerbacks in Nickel Roby Coleman. So those were some of his departures. I bring this up because, let me just draw some comparisons, and they're not the same position, but Stephon Gilmore was a 1st-round pick, homegrown talent, up and coming, one of the better players at his position, a lot of potential seen. That is, in many ways, kind of what Ryan Poles just let walk out the door with James Daniels, a guy that's still young, has some potential, opportunity, and you're letting some of these fundamental players from the past regime walk. Mm-hmm. Then you're looking at trades, and it's funny I don't do this to like crap on N'Keal Harry because his future is yet to be told. We're going to see how that plays out. Mm-hmm. But at the time, and this is, mind you, Josh Allen's not here. Josh Allen came a year later. They decided to trade for Kelvin Benjamin, their big X receiver. Now they gave up Kelvin Benjamin, traded from the Panthers to the Bills, gave up a 3rd-round pick and a 7th for him. Kind of, again, not the 3rd, but you got that 7th-round pick, that eerily similar, let's go get a big X receiver like N'Keal Harry and Kelvin Benjamin. Mm-hmm. Then they give away, I believe Marcel Darius was a 3rd overall pick, and they just trade him away to the Jacksonville Jaguars for a 6th rounder. That's, in many ways, no, we got much more value, so I'm happy about that. But that's your Khalil Mack big star defensive player that you're trading away for what many felt wasn't good enough compensation, and you're trading away your star defensive player for, in this case, it was a 6th rounder. For Khalil Mack, it was a 2nd and a 6th.
Dude, great breakdown.
Thank you. I'm sorry that this has taken so long, but I want to make sure I get it all out here so it's understood.
I feel like I have to pull out my glasses. I have to read all this. There's a lot going. That's amazing.
Well, and
all these stats. No, great job. Look at this.
Thank you. So Reggie Ragland, a former 2nd-round pick linebacker that was drafted by the previous regime, they traded him for a 4th rounder. Ronald Darby, a guy that's still in the league, pretty solid number 2 corner, currently is starting corner in Denver, and actually was the reason Kyle Fuller wasn't playing last year. They traded him to the Eagles for Jordan Matthews and a 3rd-round pick. And then Sammy Watkins. People don't recall this, but Sammy Watkins was still hot at that time. Top 10 pick. Yeah. Traded him for a 2nd rounder and a starting corner in E.J. Gaines. And then traded a developmental quarterback out of Ohio State, Cardale Jones.
Sammy Watkins, wasn't he the same draft as Kevin White, if I remember correctly?
Yes, I believe he was. And so there's a lot going on here. I could go deeper, but the whole point I want to show you is Brandon Bean is over here purging the roster, just completely wiping the negative of this kind of disdain of what the Bills had become under the previous regime, and decided to wipe it in the interest of starting over in his image. And that's including, hey, we're going to let good young players like Stephon Gilmore go and Robert Woods. We're going to go ahead and trade off a number 3 overall pick and Sammy Watkins, a guy that's not quite working out. And you can see in some of these, and this is the unique part that we're going to get into, but he actually ended up trading a lot of these picks that he got for these players. But just off of the top, he's sending a 3rd and a 7th for Benjamin, but he's getting back a 3rd in the Matthews trade end of player. He's getting back a 2nd in the Watkins trade. He's getting a 6th, a 4th, and a 7th for Darius Ragland Jones. Then we go to, who did he sign? He signed quite a few players, and the long story of it is he signed a bunch of 1-year guys to kind of fill the roster. Kind of sounds similar to the Bears. Matt Adams,
smart moves.
Julian Davenport, just 1-year flyers, prove it deals. The 2 big guys that he got out of that draft were Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer are the 2 starting safeties. They've been in Buffalo since that year and have been, honestly, probably the best safety duo in the league. Now, I'm not telling you he signed Eddie Jackson, but the reality is he signed these players that became fundamental, functional mainstays for them.
Mm-hmm.
And that may be a Nick Moreau. That may be a Justin Jones. That may be a Lucas Patrick. We're waiting to see, but
that may be a Dane Cruikshank.
Yeah, well, and this is the thing. I'm bringing this up because at the time, Micah Hyde was pretty legit, came from Green Bay, had some promise. Jordan Poyer had some decent years in Cleveland, but at the time, none of them were home run hits. It was okay. And it actually, I mean, nobody will recall this pretty much, but at the time, there was a lot of confusion about why is he tearing down the roster and sending these good players? If you're going to tear it down, just go ahead and tear it down. Don't bring in these players like Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. What are you doing?
Right.
And then in the draft that year, after following the 17th season, decided that he was going to draft Matt Milano, who, for those that aren't familiar, Matt Milano is one of the best linebackers in the game as a will. Honestly, he's outperformed fellow first-rounder Tremaine Edmonds. Matt Milano, I think, was a 4th or 5th round pick. I'll get to that. Deion Dawkins, I would consider Deion Dawkins. He's their starting left tackle now. Got him in the 2nd round at a Temple. I'd tell you, honestly, he's about a top 10 tackle. I would put him in the same realm as like an Orlando Brown Jr., who's currently looking to get paid. Deion Dawkins has since been paid. And then drafted Tre'Davious White in the 1st round. Tre'Davious White, a corner that some people had questions on about his length, his speed, lateral agility, ability to cover. And he is now considered to be easily one of the top 10 corners in the league. And so you're seeing the fundamental pieces being built in that first year. Can Trey White be a Kyler Gordon? Can Deion Dawkins be a Braxton Jones? Can Matt Milano be, name a defensive player that was picked up? Dom Robinson, just one of those guys. I brought this in. I'll go ahead.
One of the questions that I had asked Greg Gabriel on the Barroom Network was about Brisker playing some Sam in some packages.
Yes,
he was like, actually, no, it'll probably be Dane Cruikshank playing that because he played a lot of that for the Titans. So you're going to see a lot of mix up there going on, I think, with this defense as far as like maybe some strong safety playing some Sam, in certain packages, in the dime packages, maybe some other like little, packages to, throw them off with.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think that'll be Cruikshank's role. I think Brisker may play a little bit of that. And I kind of showed it in my defensive breakdown on Eberflus's defense last year that the safety was playing in the box a lot, and I think you're going to see that. And we've heard Brisker talk about wanting to play in the box, so I think.
Oh God, I'm so excited about that. Yeah.
All right, so moving along, I did want to kind of touch here. I just thought it was a unique one. They actually traded with the Bears in 2016 to select Reggie Ragland out of Alabama at number 41 overall. And the reason let me be very clear. I love Tevin Jenkins. I would be heartbroken. I actually was more happy about the Jenkins pick than the Fields pick, as crazy as that sounds. And not that I was against Fields. I just love Tevin Jenkins. I'd be upset if Tevin Jenkins found himself in this situation, but I just want to show you, as much as Ryan Poles may be getting criticism now, these are the type of moves that first-year Brandon Beane, and now everybody loves Brandon Beane. The Bills are in everybody's favor, Super Bowl favorites. Decided to trade a guy from the previous regime that was picked at number 41 overall and cut him 1 year later. Or I should say cut him. He traded him out for a 4th-round pick. Decided to get rid of a guy that was selected high. Decided, I don't need to see any more of him. He's out.
Yeah.
Then decided he was going to trade off Mike Gillislee for the Matt Milano pick, the pick that ultimately led them to get their player. So trading off a player, in this case, Khalil Mack traded to go get a guy in the draft that became a real player for them. I also thought it was interesting to talk about the fact that people, and this would look horrible in hindsight if it didn't work out, but they actually decided in the draft to allow the Kansas City Chiefs to move up to number 10 overall, to jump the Saints, to select Patrick Mahomes, and at the time decided we are not ready to go get our quarterback yet.
Right.
And moved to 27 to go get a top 10 corner and picked up a 3rd and next year's 1st-round pick. Yeah,
I felt so bad for him at the time, and then Here we are in the last AFC Championship game. Boy, was that fun to watch.
Yeah, and that's the thing, is that looks horrible in hindsight if they don't get Josh Allen, but look, coulda, shoulda, woulda, they did.
Exactly.
So then as we move along here, and I did the last kind of point for this first year.
But just to make a point about Mahomes.
Yep.
I would like to see one person that thought Mahomes was going to be a top 11 pick.
Oh, yeah. No, I agree.
I had him as a 2nd rounder. I thought the Bears should have gone with Jamal Adams, and then gone for Mahomes in the second round.
Sure.
Because even if I had to do that draft over again a million times, if it was me, I still would not have. I would not have taken Mahomes at 2 or even 3. I would have had to trade down to get him, but even at 10, I probably wouldn't have. So, side note, sorry. I mean, the point is, like, nobody could have possibly known.
No, I mean,
where the hell that guy came from.
No, there was only 2 guys that want to take credit for it. It was Brett Veach and Sean Payton. So,
right.
Yeah, and then, I mean, again, lastly, they used a 3rd-round pick to move up to go get their left tackle, the future. And I did want to kind of touch on that. They also moved up to get a guy named Zay Jones. Zay Jones was actually one of the worst picks of Bean's early career. Didn't ever pan out. Actually just got paid by the Jaguars. But I just thought that was interesting. Also moved up to get a kind of I don't want to say a gadget player, but a project player, if you will. Kind of a similar Velus Jones type pick. Moved up to go get him. So I bring that up because I hope that by now I've started to draw some parallels of this really tough year where Brandon Bean walked into Buffalo. The cap was in a hellacious situation. They had to watch young stars walk away, had to trade away some former high picks because they weren't performing up to standard, wanted to get paid, didn't fit the new system, signed a few key players that at the time nobody really knew, drafted some later picks that really started to hit, and Matt Milano and some early promise in Deion Dawkins and Trey White, passed on a franchise quarterback only to get one the next year in Josh Allen. You can see some really bold moves here from Brandon Bean in year 1 that I think you can draw some parallels to with Ryan Poles trading away Khalil Mack, letting James Daniels walk, letting Allen Robinson walk away, not re-signing him, moving on from certain players on that defense. I think that there's enough there to say, look, there is a very unique, eerie similarity to what was going on in Buffalo that you can kind of see in Chicago now. Would you agree, Shorty? I
would
don't need you to placate me.
No, 100% agree.
So
I mean, then you add that he went and took 5 picks before the Khalil Mack trade and turned that into 11.
Yep.
He more than doubled the picks. I mean, you're just adding to that. The more players you can add to your for lack of a better word, your thumbnails, like keep adding. Find the best ones. So the fact that he turned 5 into 11 in that draft was just, to me.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. Okay. So then, well, I know this is running long here, but I wanted to kind of draw the comparison because now I feel like I wanted to break this into a few sections. Like, let's compare their GM, one of the best GMs in the league now, to our young GM and seeing just some of the similarities. And then, you talk about kind of the second most important piece, and in some people's eyes, they'd say the most important in QB1, Justin Fields. So if you take your eyes to the bottom right here, you can see some of Fields' rookie stats. He went 2-8 as a starter, started 10 games. He appeared in 12, for those that are wondering what 2 games. He ended up subbing in for Andy Dalton in the Cincinnati game. Didn't start that, but appeared in that game and actually won that game. LA Rams, I was there. He actually ran that. That was his first career touchdown, running that read option play, beating Leonard Floyd around the edge.
Nice.
So those were the 12 games he appeared in, as well as the 2-8 start. Had a 58.9% completion percentage, and then 1870, so 1,870 passing yards. 7 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, was sacked almost 12% of the time, 36 times put on the ground, with a 73.2% passer rating, or a 73.2 pass rating, and then a 26.4 QBR. That's what you're looking at with our young quarterback. Now, if I could simultaneously, mind you, I tell you, we started 10 games coming in as a starter theoretically in week 3, but started a lot of the Cincinnati game once Dalton went out. So when you're thinking about that, he technically should have had 15 games on his plate and missed quite a few to COVID and injury. So let's now take our eyes over to rookie year Josh Allen 2018. You're talking about a guy who missed 4 games with an elbow injury. Talking about a guy who also, like Justin Fields, showed many flash plays. Everybody thinks about Justin Fields running that 23-yard run against San Francisco.
Well, did he play the first game even? I don't think he even played the
first
game.
No, he didn't. No, Josh Allen did not. And so
he came in the second game. So, yeah, one of those games is not even from an injury.
Yeah. And, You look at Justin Fields, you see some of the flash plays he did. Everybody thinks about the 49ers run. They think about the Pittsburgh Steelers, Darnell Mooney touchdown pass. He had the beautiful bombs against the Detroit Lions, those flash plays. Well, let's also remind people that Josh Allen similarly had those flash plays. As a rookie, he's the one that hurdled Anthony Barr, made Anthony Barr look kind of foolish as 6'5" Josh Allen's hurdling over him. And then really kind of came on strong at the end. I don't want to say Justin Fields ever got this because unfortunately he had COVID at the end of the year. But, I mean, his last game was the Steelers game, if I recall. And it was kind of showing that Fields was coming along. And you're seeing a little bit of a similarity there. Now, much different. But Josh Allen actually finished with 5.
Pissed me off. Oh,
yeah.
we should have won that game.
Yeah, Josh Allen finished with 5 touchdowns in his final game against Miami, winning AFC Offensive Player of the Week. The Bills finished 6-10. Can you remind me what the Bears finished this year?
They had 6 wins. 6-11?
6-11. So we're looking very similar there with their young quarterback that would then become a star.
But you look at their yards. Josh Allen, 2074.
Yep.
Justin Fields, 1870. Touchdowns, Allen, 10. Interceptions, 12. Fields, 7, 10. I mean, not too far off from each other. Their completion percentage was actually Justin Fields had a better completion percentage at 58.9 compared to Josh Allen's 52.8. So, and he threw a lot more passes, which of course would bring that number down. But still, I mean, they're very similar when you talk about them side by side with their numbers.
Yeah, I mean, and Fields has Allen beaten a few areas, as you said. Passer rating's one of them, completion percentage. I mean, Josh Allen, again, a guy we're talking about, AFC Championship star player, went 5-6 as a rookie, 8 rushing touchdowns. And again, I'm not telling you that the Buffalo Bills offense looked amazing that year, but he had Brian Daboll, who's now a head coach from the start. We know that Justin Fields was working with Matt Nagy at that time. And so you're seeing it's not a direct comparison. Nobody's quite as bad as Matt Nagy on the offensive play calling side, but you can see some real early struggles here with Josh Allen. And then you consider what we're looking at in kind of a sophomore year. And this is what we're talking about with Fields. And I wanted to include the third year, the junior year for Allen to kind of really show the linear jump. But let's focus now on the sophomore year. We're talking about him starting all year, remaining healthy, went 10-6, drastic improvement from 5-6. Literally didn't lose a single game more, won double the amount, on 5-10. Up to his completion percentage. And mind you, this is Josh Allen, the guy that everybody hit. The big knock on him was that he had low accuracy coming out of Wyoming. In a situation here where he improved his completion percentage, jumped up his passing yards by almost 1,000 yards to 3,089, doubled his touchdowns, decreased his interceptions. I also anticipate, I mentioned this a couple days ago on Tuch's betting segment, that I think Justin Fields is actually, a lot of people thinking about that 10 interceptions. They don't realize how many of those were fluky, with Cam Hayward, to the Lions tipping a pass, to, false calls where the ref should have been able to call a flag on offsides and neutral zone infractions. There's just so many.
Can we talk about the one where he thought that they were offsides, so he thought it was a free play?
Yeah.
And he threw it into the end zone and was intercepted by the Packers. Can we talk about that one? There's a false interception right there.
Yeah, there's so many of them. So, I mean, this isn't so much of a stretch to say, is it possible that Fields gets more opportunities to put up touchdowns in a functional passing offense? And then also as a second-year quarterback, learns more about the speed of the game, fixes some of those mechanics, doesn't throw an errant pass to Rasul Douglas for a pick 6. Can he replicate more touchdowns and less interceptions the way Josh Allen did? I don't think that's that far of a stretch. And then you kind of you move down and you see, I mean, we're talking about 8% sacked 8% of the time as a rookie for Allen, moved it down to 7.6. Was actually sacked 10 more times as he was actually playing more, so that's expected. Passer rating increased dramatically. QBR stayed about the same. I think that you're seeing there, again, and the reason, to me, the sophomore year is incredibly important. And the reason for that is, let me be clear. 3,000 passing yards isn't amazing. And 58% completion rating isn't stud. And 20 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, it's very Mitchell Trubisky in 2018. It's not the MVP level Josh Allen that you're seeing.
But if we had that out of the Bears quarterback on
This
average
year.
for the last 20 years, we'd all be happy.
Yeah, if this was Justin Fields this year,
Right.
I'm not telling anybody that the Bears or the Bills right now that they're going to go win a Super Bowl, that they're going to go toe-to-toe with Patrick Mahomes in the AFC Championship. But I am trying to draw a line and show here that it takes time, even for a guy like Josh Allen. He wasn't a rookie bad like Fields and then turned into the Josh Allen we all witnessed in the playoffs last year.
Right.
There was a linear build. And so I'm
Right.
not telling anybody that the Bears are going to go to the Super Bowl, but when you have all these media members talking about how bad the Bears are going to be, look at a situation, and believe me, we're not even done here. I have to show you guys the receiver rooms during these years for 18, 19, and 20, but we're talking about a growth from a quarterback that had a really tough rookie year and found a way to put some of it, not all of it, but some of it together for his sophomore year.
As awful as it was, is awful of a position that he was put in. It's almost like he was being sabotaged. I mean, that Browns game was just a complete travesty. Like, how could anyone put their rookie quarterback in a first start in that position? Like he's Andy Dalton. So he didn't have a chance from the beginning. So for him to even do as well as he did, in my opinion, in that shitty offense with that shitty head coach, it just goes to show you that, in my opinion, moving forward, he's already hit rock bottom. He has nowhere to go but up from here.
Truly. I mean, and I know that those are famous last words and everybody go, just wait till he does worse. But I mean, really, when you think about the things that Justin Fields had to overcome, it's not a far stretch to assume that he could take a linear step forward to a decent, not great, not phenomenal, but a solid improvement, preparing for what becomes the 23 Bears. And the reason I bring that up is because
my tattoo is burning on my arm. I feel a division win.
Yeah, well, and we can talk about that, but and that's what we're kind of getting to, is we're talking about this is okay if Justin Fields can take a step in 22 to look like the 19 sophomore year of Josh Allen. Well, what does 2023 look like? And the reason I wanted to show that is because it's one thing to show bad rookie Allen to 19 Allen looking better, and then it goes to year 3 when the game slows down further. There's actually a real big reason why 20 looked a little better, and we're going to talk about that. But then you look at year 3, it all starts to come together. He starts all year again, remains healthy, goes 13-3. That's a phenomenal record. Look at the completion percentage jumping up from damn near, it's 11% pretty much.
I know. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it goes up to almost 70%. His passing yards skyrocket another 1,500 yards to 4,500. Touchdowns, I mean, goodness, they're back down to his 37 touchdowns. Like, it's just, it's phenomenal. And then
10 receptions.
Yeah, it's, again, playing all year. Sack rate goes down another 3%. Sack 12 less times. Passer rating goes up. What is that, 25 points? QBR going up another 30 points, I guess 26. It's just, it's showing this beautiful build from tough to good to phenomenal in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a little bit more to show here with like the receiver rooms, because it's going to get, so we're going to start talking about it. I think, let me kind of summate this. I want to show you the comparison between Brandon Beane as a GM and Ryan Poles, and entering two very similar situations where the teams were in bad spots, how they navigated out of this, building the team up in the process. It's a little different because obviously Poles is coming in and Justin Fields is here, but you're still seeing this scenario where Josh Allen didn't enter into 2018 with a built team. It had some holes, and just as Justin Fields did. And then 19, they start putting a few more pieces there. And I'm going to show you these pieces that were added. And then moving to 2020, where it really all came together. So I think I've compared the GM and how the roster building looks. I've compared now the two phenomenal top quarterback in the league in Josh Allen and Justin Fields. And so let me take a second here to pop back in here. I apologize, Chad, as when I'm doing that, I only have access to the graphic. I'm not able to see your comments. I promise I'll try to go through them as Shorty and I talk here, but if not, leave them there. I promise I'll try to read through them and once the stream's over. But let me kind of move along, because I know we're getting tight on time here. I'm getting late for everybody in Chicagoland. I want to also show the roster.
They'll be fine.
Yeah. So
It's Friday tomorrow.
So let's just show you the Bills roster of starters when Josh Allen was a rookie. So you're looking at LaShawn McCoy, who at this point was 30 years old, running backs considered to be okay. Are you slowly going over the turn there at 30? Are you on the back nine? Rushed for, started 13 games, rushed for 500 yards. You're looking at everything I showed you with Josh Allen there as far as the stats. He's throwing to Kelvin Benjamin, who did a lot of nothing for him. His best receiver was Zay Jones, who caught 600 yards. Had 7 touchdowns, not too bad. Charles Clay was his tight end. Let's look at that offensive line. It's Deion Dawkins, his now very good left tackle, but young starter there. Vlad Dukas, failed Jets draft pick. Russell Bodine, John Miller. Bears fans remember Jordan Mills.
Oh yeah,
that's that offense. That's what Josh Allen was working with. So let's kind of just draw some comparison there. And
for sure.
Well, yeah, and to be quite frank with you, there's a lot better. And this is why I laugh when the media says the Bears are in a bad position. I'm not even talking about what we have this year, but when you actually look back to what the Bears had last year, I hate to say it, but the Bills had much worse. So if we're just subbing Josh Allen in with Justin Fields, LaShawn McCoy was special, but David Montgomery and Juice Herbert formed to be a better starting duo there last year. Obviously, we didn't have a fullback. Kelvin Benjamin, by all accounts, kind of played the Allen Robinson role. Big X receiver that wasn't interested in playing ball that year. Then you get your scrappy Z receiver, Darnell Mooney, Zay Jones, except, oh, wait, Darnell Mooney caught for 1,000 yards and looked like a real player. Charles Clay, I mean, I'm as big of a Cole Kmet supporter as any. I mean, Cole Kmet had 800 yards last year, averaged 10 yards a catch, better tight end. Then you're talking about left tackle, Jason Peters. Call it a push. Deion Dawkins was actually still a pretty solid option there. Left guard played about the same as Cody Whitehair last year and Vlad Dukas. Center, Russell Bodine. I would argue Russell Bodine may be a little better than Sam Mustipher. But then you look over at right guard, John Miller. James Daniels didn't have a killer year last year, but was okay. John Miller was fine. Jordan Mills, right tackle. I mean, that's the equivalent of trying to roll out Larry Borum and Jermaine Ifedi and Elijah Wilkinson and Latavius Simmons. That's your offense on the Bears compared to the Bills there. Mm-hmm. And Justin Fields had it hard, and we know how much the scheme relies there. So I guess if you want to call it a push, the scheme was the negative for the Bears. The Bills, their issue was talent.
Another thing to bring up is how many years had the Bills made the playoffs before they got Josh Allen?
I don't know prior to that, but they had made the year before. That was the Tyrod Taylor year. They made the playoffs.
Oh, did they? Okay.
Yeah. So they made.
I was just trying to make the point that, is in function or non-functional as Nagy made it seem sometimes. In 4 years, they still went to the playoffs twice. So Absolutely. Imagine if they had a coach that could have really coached them. So that's another thing people forget. And you also add the strength of schedule. Last year was home away, home away, home away, home away, home away. They never had 2 games in a row on the same, home or away. It was always back-to-back home or away. This year they have plus a lot of playoff teams last year. So this year they have a much easier schedule. They don't have that home away bullshit. They have a much better coach as far as we can see from this point. So I like the comparisons, what you're bringing up here. It really is inspiring me, Jordan, because really when you break down the Bills compared to the Bears in this time frame compared to the Bears now, it makes perfect sense.
And Eric's got a good point here, and I actually remember he's bringing it up now that the Bills hadn't made the playoffs. That was the whole thing. That was the reason why Andy Dalton could go to Buffalo and have as many wings as he wanted, because it had been such a long.
Right, that's what I was thinking. It had been so long. Yeah.
Yeah, and so you're talking about even in many ways the Bears had better talent, were more competitive in the playoffs recently. It really, and this is where we're all Bears fans here, so we know it. I'm not trying to preach to you all. We all know this, but this is where I want a lot of the fans in the audience to recognize is that you have a lot of these talking heads and Dan Orlovsky and Louis Riddick and a few other people that they're supposedly NFL experts. And I'm not blaming them. I watch a ton of football. I'm a football nerd, and I like to think I know a lot about teams. But even I am going to miss exactly how bad Urban Meyer was last year in Jacksonville. I'm going to really not remember how injured the Ravens were last year.
Right.
I'm not going to remember that. I don't know. We can think up about any the
All the running backs they went through. Yeah.
Look, the Chargers were fantastic, and everybody remembers, well, Justin Herbert didn't get in the playoff. Yeah, their right tackle was Storm Norton and Trey Pipkins. It was a really mess there at the right tackle. So and this is me as a fan of the Bears, but I love football. I know a lot about other teams. Excuse me, but I look at a situation there where these talking heads, these media members that are saying the Bears are going to be top 1 draft pick, top 3 draft pick, they don't realize, because they're not watching the Bears as intently as us fans, that the Bears had talent. They did find themselves eking into the playoffs in the 7th seed. And really, when you look at it, I'm showing you the 2018 Bills because they didn't have nearly the same talent. Right. But the difference is that they had Brian Daboll, a guy that was there supporting their quarterback from a rookie onward, and now just got hired away as the head coach for the Giants. But Matt Nagy and his entire offensive staff and his tenure never did a good job supporting or developing any player. And I mean that. I'm being generous saying, yes, Darnell Mooney has produced, so has David Montgomery. And yes, if you want to give those to Nagy or, God, who was the wide receiver coach? Big, strong, buff white guy, but Coach Fury.
Oh, Fury, yeah.
Yeah. If you want to give those Darnell Mooney to him, or so be it. But when you actually look at it, Jordan Howard was traded away. David Montgomery really hasn't been shown the opportunities he should have been given. Mitchell Trubisky didn't develop the way he should have. Cole Kmet, Adam Shaheen, Riley Ridley. I can go down the list here of different guys. Cody Whitehair being moved around numerous times. James Daniels being moved around. Mm-hmm. It's in all over the roster. The coaching directly dragged and pulled the talent of that roster down to the black hole level. Yeah, neglect, just to the inept level of the coaching. And so
25-yard run by Montgomery, take him out.
Yep. No, and that's the thing. So I know that it's really easy to get caught up in how negative everybody is about the Bears, but as a Bears fan, just know that you understand it a little better than they do. Don't take it so personal with them. Understand that we know the context of what bad coaching is. And you're seeing a situation where Josh Allen, a quarterback that was legit, Justin Fields, a quarterback who can be legit, that were covered up by their own issues. And then with some better options, in this case with the Bills, they gave Josh Allen more talent. With Justin Fields, they're going to give him not just more talent, but better coaching. We start to see that linear path of growth. And that's
the thing that all these talking heads don't understand is better coaching doesn't – you don't have to go out and sign a Christian Kirk for $85 million a year.
Oh, you don't.
Because better coaching will get you where you want to go.
Well, and let's just not forget. I mean, I don't mean to go too far off in the weeds. I've been listening. Anybody that wants a great podcast to listen to, The Athletic just put out a Andrew Luck podcast, 6 parts, fantastic. But, there was a talk there about, and a lot of people that may remember this, Ryan Grigson, the GM, did such a failure at protecting Andrew Luck. And some of that's true. There's no denying about it. But really what kind of got them in trouble is they got so fascinated with this idea, and the media is doing this too. You've got this young quarterback. You need to surround him with all of the weapons that you can. And listen, I even get trapped into that a little bit.
Sure.
But sometimes, sometimes what you don't realize, Shorty, and you know where I'm going here because I know you feel the same, is your quarterback is the straw that stirs the drink. He is going to lift all of those receivers up to his level. All he needs is protection, time, and a run game so that all of a sudden defenses have to feel threatened by the run. It's a real concern. So when Montgomery runs for 25, another 25-yard run may be right behind it. They're not putting Tariq Cohen in on the goal line at 1 yard. All of a sudden you start having functional offense.
You start building on moments. You start building on momentum. All of a sudden a 15-yard gain turns into a 20. All of a sudden you can run the ball down their damn throats.
Yeah, and this is what it's about.
On the rhythm.
Protect your quarterback, run the ball. All of a sudden, let Justin Fields lift up the no-namers, the N'Keal Harrys, the Velus Joneses, the David Moores, the Dante Pettises.
I mean, how long have we been hearing about how Green Bay never drafts Aaron Rodgers a wide receiver?
Yep.
It's like, because they know he's going to develop the next one for them.
Yep. And it's just about, hey, give him enough time.
So let Justin Fields help to develop our next wide receiver for us. Stop trying to go out and find the big name $250 million wide receiver you have to give up 3 first-round draft picks for. Who cared? No, do not do that. I like the route we're going. Let the guys that we have prove themselves with a better quarterback, and let the quarterback make the wide receivers better.
Well, and so speaking about that, let's jump into the 2019, the year 2 for Allen. What do those weapons look like? So let's kind of get ready to show you that here. So now we're talking about the 2019 offensive staff. I mean, we can look at defensive starters if you want to, but I mean, the point here is to show the offense. All of a sudden, Josh Allen gets a rookie running back, Khalil Herbert coming on year 2, 775 yards. And what's the big difference at wide receiver? And this is the best part to me because I just want to show Cole Beasley was at best a slot receiver for the Dallas Cowboys before he got to the Bills. Kind of sounds a lot like Byron Pringle, just at best a slot receiver for the Chiefs before he got to the Bears. John Brown was a guy that had some on and off years, had a good year in Buffalo here, but the idea was that he really came on with Arizona, and I think at this point maybe he was with the Ravens before he got to the Bills. He was very much an unknown, and injuries had really caught up to him. And then they had this really shifty – now, Velus Jones is not this. He's much bigger. But they had this guy named Isaiah McKenzie, really small. I think he's 5'6", 5'7", jitterbug of a guy. If you want to call this Tristan Ebner, you can. A guy that's a gadget guy. A guy that can do reverses, catch screens.
Yeah.
And then they bring in this rookie tight end, Dawson Knox, who now is one of the best tight ends in the league. And you start looking at – let's go to that offensive line, which still isn't perfect, by the way, but – Cody Ford, that was a second-round rookie. Now, Cody Ford has not developed into the guy that they're hoping for. Who knows what his future is. But Mitch Morse, veteran center that they brought in from Kansas City, he's still there, one of the best centers in the league. Really solid player. John Feliciano, an attitude guy. I kind of bring this up because veteran center, Lucas Patrick, but also John Feliciano. I look at them kind of one and the same. You get this veteran player that they brought over. Feliciano, I believe, was with the Raiders, but think of it as a glue guy, a guy that was just kind of nasty, going to set the tone. This may be a Tevin Jenkins type guy that, hey, missed last year, but comes in and he sets the tone. Then they bring in Quentin Spain at left guard, and they still have Deion Dawkins, their young tackle, building up, becoming that guy. And all of a sudden we're seeing, I hope this is the chat seeing these comparisons of, look, I guess this is the point, Shorty, and this is what drives me crazy, is a lot of what we've been hearing is that the Bears don't have an all-star receiver room.
Oh, God,
and I'm here. Well, I want to be clear. I'm here to tell you I kind of agree that they don't. And it's interesting. I'm going to contradict myself here a little bit in a second.
No, I kind of agree with you too. So I mean, I'll let you speak because I do kind of agree with you.
Yeah, I'm not here to tell anybody that the Bears have an all-star receiver room, and I'm going to tell everybody in a second here when we go to 2020 why that matters. But what I am trying to say though is as much as you don't, I guess what, and I know I'm stumbling over my words here because I'm trying to find a way to not confuse the audience. There are a lot of people that think that you need a star receiver to be successful for your quarterback to thrive. And we saw Josh Allen go from a really bad offensive talent to a better offensive talent with not a lot of named guys like Cole Beasley, third string or slot receiver guy, John Brown, kind of same role, speedster, Isaiah McKenzie, a gadget guy, Dawson Knox, rookie tight end, Devin Singletary, rookie running back. And you're still
honest, I've never even heard of John Brown.
Yeah, and you're talking. I mean, yeah, there's a small
catches for 1,060 yards and 6 touchdowns.
Sounds a lot like Darnell Mooney's year last year.
Exactly.
So the thing is that and what I'm trying to show here is that
was exactly.
Yeah, you don't need a star receiver for your quarterback to improve and produce reasonable, decent stats. If you're actually looking at so passing touchdowns, it's 20-9. It's almost a 2-to-1 ratio. But you're also not considering he ran for 9 touchdowns. So when you consider what he added, he was plus 20 touchdowns to turnovers.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredible. Now, remember, this is the guy. You got to – come on, man. You guys drafted Josh Allen number 7 overall last year. You got to support your quarterback. What are you doing? Where's the star receiver? Come on, help him out.
Right?
And the answer is, well, I'll tell you what, we're gonna bring in 30-year-old Cole Beasley, and then we're gonna bring in 29-year-old John Brown, and we're gonna bring in this little kind of shifty slot guy and Isaiah McKenzie, and I guess the way we're gonna help our second-year quarterback is we're gonna offer up a rookie tight end and a rookie running back. And my point is that if you have the right quarterback, he can still improve and make the team better, even without all-star talent as his weapons. So let me back out here. Stop sharing
Sorry,
that.
I had to go on a side note and look who the hell John Braun was, because I don't even know who that is.
Yeah, John Braun is interesting. I actually really like John Braun. He was a guy that was drafted by Arizona, part of the Bruce Arians regime. He actually came on really hot in Arizona. And then, unfortunately, injuries kind of derailed his early career before he moved on to Buffalo and Baltimore. And I think he's out of the league now. But
good knowledge, man.
So, and again, we got one more here before I let people we're going to go into one more segment and then we'll get out of here so I can get people to sleep into bed. But the idea here is that I don't know how you're sharing media say Justin Fields is going to have a horrible year. I just showed you a receiver room that didn't have an all-star. Their best receiver had 1,000 yards. Guess what? The Bears have 1,000 yards.
John Brown is Mooney.
Yeah, and I mean I can pull it up again, but here I'll look at it as the offside. The offside is that I don't remember exactly what Dawson Knox had, but I'm sure if he had 800 yards, that's what Cole Kmet had last year, and rookie running back ran for 700 yards. You're going to have Montgomery.
Very similar, yeah.
It's a lot that's close. So then let's jump you to the big difference. What happened in year 2 to year 3? Why did Josh Allen explode? And this is where I said I'm going to compromise or contradict my theory a little bit, but you'll see where it's going here. So as we move to 2020, what caused the explosion? I'm going to kind of let you look, Shorty, and you tell me what you think the big difference is.
4,544 yards passing.
And where'd those yards go to?
37 touchdowns, 10 interceptions.
Yeah.
102 rushes for 421 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Yeah. Who's the guy that was catching a lot of those?
Stephon Diggs.
Stephon Diggs. That's the big difference maker. When you consider, I mean, we talked about it. He threw for 3,000 yards.
Ooh, Jordan, you might be onto something.
He threw for 3,000 yards. He threw for 3,000 yards and then jumped up 1,500 yards. You can almost exclusively count Stephon Diggs' yards as the reason single-handedly from 3,000 to 4,500.
Mm-hmm.
And
27 catches.
Yeah, and then they got obviously a little bit more competent of a receiver in Gabriel Davis as a rookie who came on and gave 600 yards. People may remember Gabriel Davis as the guy that caught 4 touchdowns in the playoff game against the Chiefs last.
Yes. Yep.
So all of a sudden they add more draft talent in Gabriel Davis, and I'm going to give a little insight. This is where Ryan Poles may have to learn this lesson, just like Brandon Beane had to. Brandon Beane said, "We don't need a star receiver for our quarterback to succeed." And he was kind of right. Josh Allen could find a way to pull it through without the star receiver. And then even he said, holy shit, in this day and age, you really need to have a true number 1 receiver to unlock your offense. You just have to. It's a non-negotiable. I don't care what anybody wants to say. You have to have it, which is why I probably said I would have given up whatever it needed to get to go get a DK Metcalf or a Terry McLaurin or a guy like that.
Hence Roquan Smith for DK Metcalf.
Yeah. I promise we will have you back on to talk about. But the idea here is that as much as I said you don't need that star receiver to make it functional, and that's where I think we're talking about this year. I don't think Darnell Mooney's a number 1, frankly, but I don't think you have to have number 1 for Justin Fields to improve and look solid. And I think that's where we're heading. And then I think next year with either a high draft pick or a high wide receiver like a DK Metcalf maybe hitting the market, or potentially Calvin Ridley, or a trade for a guy. I think Ryan Poles, if he's smart and Justin Fields shows, because this is the thing, nobody wants to talk about this, and I'm not trying to stir up controversy. The reality is Ryan Poles doesn't know what he has in Justin Fields yet. He doesn't know if Justin Fields is the guy.
No, he does not. No, you're right.
And Justin Fields, this is his opportunity this year to show that he's a real player. And if he does, a la 20 touchdown, 9 interceptions, 3,000 yards passing, something similar like that, not a huge step, but a positive step, then I imagine Ryan Poles may look at it and go, okay, I know I have my guy. It's time to load up, and we have over $100 million in cap. we're going to go out and go get him a star receiver. We're going to go out and get him his version of Stephon Diggs. And all of a sudden, you see Justin Fields, the way Josh Allen did, explode in his third year, having a guy that he can rely on to go, hey, let me go ahead and feed you 1,500 yards. And I know people love the Darnell Mooney and Justin Fields connection. I'm with it. I'm not telling you Darnell Mooney has to walk away. I hope they pay him. But the idea is, what happens now? I'm telling you, Stephon Diggs with a rookie and Gabriel Davis and John Brown. What happens when it's Darnell Mooney and DK Metcalf? What happens when it's Darnell Mooney and Calvin Ridley? What happens when it's Darnell Mooney and Jordan Addison or Jackson Smith and Jigba or Kayshon Boutte? I mean, any of these guys. What happens to your young quarterback when he has a real playmaker, Jamar Chase? We saw it last year. Joe Burrow looked pretty solid, pretty competitive in his rookie year. He got Jamar Chase and exploded. And then I'll kind of close out here as we wrap this up, but I just want to show the entire thing. Again, Devin Singletary, solid year. John Brown still there, almost 500 yards. Dawson Knox, hey, Cole Kmet sucks. Yeah, Dawson Knox is putting up less numbers, but still a player there. And then the line, still not anything particularly special. Brian Winters was fine. Darrell Williams was okay. Ike Boker still on the roster, but he's not a starter. So the only guy that they even still have on the team is Mitch Morse and Deion Dawkins. And that's, 2020? That's 2 years ago. So I apologize for all the graphics, as I wasn't able to see the chat, but I'm back. We're going to kind of try to get a wrap on this here soon, but I hope that was interesting, insightful, engaging, to show you why I think it's not too far of a stretch to see that the Chicago Bears, at least as I said at the beginning, are at a crossroads where they can very closely emulate what one of the best franchises in the league right now is doing. The way that they've operated, trading for particular players, signing players, drafting players, letting certain players go, choosing to build the receiving core out of smaller players to start, and then putting the star player
dropping salary cap, issues, things like that. I was doing a little side note on here, looking at their sizes comparatively between Stephon Diggs and Darnell Mooney, and they're not that far off from each other.
Mm-hmm.
So if they can bring in Stephon Diggs to be a number one, isn't it conceivable then that Darnell Mooney in year 3 could become that number one, considering they're both relatively the same size? Stephon Diggs is 6 foot 191. Darnell Mooney is 5'11", like 190 or 185 or something. So, just side note, like, what makes number one? Is it the route running? Is it the size? Is it the catch radius? Is it the I mean, we can go on for a whole other podcast about that, but I was just kind of contrasting the two players as you were talking about them on the side here, just to gain my own knowledge of it, and they seem relatively similar in their skill set. So,
well, it's and you're not that you did anything wrong. I just think it's a very complicated question, but I'll give you my answer. It does not mean I'm right. It just means it's my opinion.
I know what your answer is going to be.
Yeah. Okay. Well, and so I'll lead that into everybody. I did want to quickly, before I get to that, show Bear Truth here, because I think this is important. I had mentioned Kayshon and Jackson Smith and Jigba and Jordan Addison. I too, Bear Truth, if I had it my way, they would draft a 3-tech in the first round and draft a receiver in the second year. If for nothing else, then the amount of receivers in the first round that have not worked out, from Jalen Reagor to, I'm trying to just go through all the names, Sammy Watkins to other guys. It's just not tended to work out. Yes, there's an occasional Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, these Devontae Smith, guys like that. But you tend to see the second round be a DK Metcalf. Robert Woods was there. Cooper Kupp was in the third. I'm trying to think of other players. Allen Robinson was a second round pick.
Mm-hmm.
Devontae Adams, Calvin Ridley was the first, so I'm back off on that. But I tend to think that I'd like a wide receiver in the second round next year as well. Okay, so now to answer your question, in my opinion, what a wide receiver one is to me is a guy that it's not even an archetype or a size. Now, I tend to think it's an X receiver. It's just what I prefer. But that doesn't mean you're a one. Just because you're in N'Keal Harry or DJ Chark or, you name it, DK Metcalf, doesn't mean you're a one. To me, what a one is, and I literally don't care if you're Tyreek Hill, Darnell Mooney. I just need you to do one thing, and this is what makes you a one. I need you to literally be a security blanket when I need you most. Mm-hmm. And the guy that I really think of, yes, he was kind of an X, but literally it has nothing to do with that. The guy that is etched into my brain as the guy that was a true number one. Yes, Randy Moss was a different build than Chad Johnson, than Terrell Owens. But the guy I think of is Michael Irvin. Troy Aikman, when he knew that, gosh, we really need a first down. And I look, I got other options. I can throw it to Daryl Johnston and ask the fullback to take it out, or maybe I'll dump it off to Emmett. No, it was always like, look, I'm going to 88. I'm going to playmaker, because I know that playmaker, no matter what, he'll find a way. Jerry Rice, same way. I just know that when it matters, this guy is going to get me a buck. He's going to win the battle.
Yeah.
And I love Darnell Mooney. I promise this is not a shit on Darnell Mooney fest. I watched too many times last year where Darnell Mooney could not
do it. Right.
Yeah. And it's okay. That's not everybody's a star, and that's fine. That's okay. But if you're not, that's fine. Play your role. Play the Z. Play a guy that's speedy and gets open and makes a splash play, and you've already got good chemistry with Fields. But then I need a guy that when it's the last drive of the game to try and compete because your defense just gave another touchdown to the 49ers. Justin Fields
need that drive,
takes a big shot, and Darnell Mooney tries, but then it bobbles it, and Josh Norman picks it off. I can't have that. I can't.
Right.
And so to me, when we say wide receiver one, like think of let's just go through some of the guys. Justin Jefferson, watch him play. When the ball needs to be converted, he's always open. Now, whether it goes to him or not, quarterback gets sacked, but he's always there. He's always open.
Right.
Tyreek Hill was kind of doing that. Now, Tyreek Hill is an interesting guy because they had Travis Kelce and things like that. But you think of other players, Cooper Kupp. Let me give you a perfect example. And I'll end with this and we can move on. The OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., was desperately needed by the Rams to unlock that offense for the backside digs, for a lot of different issues. When he went down in the Super Bowl, the Rams offense completely shut down and stopped.
Completely changed.
They had to figure it out on the fly. And that tells you how valuable OBJ is, the fact that he's still out there. You want to talk about the Bears going to go get a number one. That could be an option. Probably not going to happen, but just an example. Now, Cooper Kupp, what makes it? Cooper Kupp's not like some 6'4" DK Metcalf guy. What makes him a one? Because when the offense faltered and they needed to figure it out, and it's the fourth quarter, and all of a sudden we need our guy to catch the ball, Stafford needs a play. He went in the fourth quarter final drive and said, I'm just going to go with a Kupp back to back to back to back to back. And Cooper Kupp, as dog tired as he may have been, knowing he's the only weapon, continued to find a way to win.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
That's
you need that guy. Yeah. The guy that you're, for example, Trubisky's, best years. Where'd he go? Robinson.
Yeah, perfect example. I mean, it wasn't there last year because he wasn't interested in playing, but that's a freaking perfect example, Shorty.
Right.
When Mitch knew it better than anybody. Look, I'm not really confident. I don't like this offense. I'm not feeling great.
Right. I'm not comfortable. I got to run. There's Allen Robinson. Throw the ball.
I'll just throw it to Allen, and Allen will find a way no matter what to come down with it.
Back when he cared. Yeah.
That's a wide receiver one.
Yeah. 100% agree.
And I mean, I see some comments
I like how you break it down too.
Yeah, I see some comments here, and this is where I'm saying a lot of people get defensive. I don't hate Darnell Mooney, and I know you're not even bare truth. You may not be arguing Leo Factor, like Mooney has hands, can jump, beat you with routes, can run past you. Yes, this is what I mean. He can win in other ways. But the idea is and I'm not even telling you Michael Irvin or Cooper Kupp can win the way Tyreek Hill wins or Jamar Chase wins. I don't care how you win. Just that when I need you, and you do win. And there are certainly examples of that. Darnell Mooney found a way to win in the Steelers game. And he found a way to win and open up plays in the Lions game. Mm-hmm. And he found a way to open up a play for Andy Dalton on the screen route in the Ravens game. Mm-hmm. There are ways, but I'm talking about two. I need it all the time. I need it that, hey, look, it's going to be a tough catch. You're going to get hit here. I need you to find a way to pull it down. And that wasn't always the case.
correct. You're correct.
Leo, you're saying show us Mooney where he needed to get open and he got locked up. I want to see these plays. I'll see if I can dig some up for you. I also don't love getting into that because then all of a sudden I just looks like I'm crapping on the guy. Darnell Mooney does a lot right. And Shorty, you know this. When I do film, I show good and I show bad because I'm not here to show all the highlights. I'm not here to show all the lowlights. I'm not here to paint a narrative. I will show you both.
To Leo's point, there are a lot of plays, if you're watching Mooney, where he is wide open, but Trubisky never looked at him. Or the play, or Nagy told him not to go there. So he told him to only look over here and throw it to that guy. Whereas Mooney was wide open, he play faked his guy perfectly. And those are just some of the examples of why I think he is a wide receiver one, just in a wide receiver two body.
Yeah,
I think it's the best way to talk to describe it.
Yeah, and this is and I want to be Leo, Bear Truth. I'm not going at any of you. I don't take it offensively. Don't take this offensively. It's not like we're arguing. I'm just trying to hopefully elaborate on my point that I think Darnell Mooney has a lot of good.
Damn it, Jordan! I'm out of here. I thought you liked Mooney.
Yeah, I think he's an amazing player. If I'm being frank, I think that he is one of the best wide receiver twos, the best Z's in the league. I actually think you can play him as a low end wide receiver one. I mean, look nothing further. So you have to have a question about how much was Darnell Mooney being force fed the ball because there was no other options. That's the whole Matt Nagy never developed anybody.
That's a good point.
So how much of that was being forced? I don't even think
Allen Robinson's quitting over here on the other side.
Yeah, I got to be clear. I don't even think that's really the case. I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Right.
But I also think certainly you, as the only receiver, and you're still doing that because teams know Allen Robinson's not doing shit, and you're still putting it up. You are legit. Right. I'm just saying, and listen, Darnell Mooney's not a closed. His development isn't finished. He can still develop. I'm just saying, currently, as we sit here on July 14th. I think that there's a part of his game that isn't there yet. And if for some reason he wants to unlock that this summer and all of a sudden he comes back and he's, winning every jump ball and all of a sudden he's unstoppable. He's the Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, Cooper Kupp, Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, Jerry Rice, Michael Irvin. If he's one of those guys, dude, I'll sing it to the hills. I'll tell everybody he's wide receiver one. But right now, I'm not ready to do that.
I will say that I can agree with you that I can't see that happening on a regular basis, which definitely puts him into the tier that you're describing him as. Yes, I see that for sure.
I see some. It's funny, Aaron, and I promise we'll get off of it. Jordan just reminded me of Chris Carter with all his true number one talk. God, I hate that. Yeah, I know, because it's a very tough. It's a very tough. And Leo, I see you here saying you want to see the just what a wide receiver one looks like. Examples. Maybe I can do that. Maybe I'll pull examples of where I didn't feel like Mooney did it, but I'll show you Jefferson or Chase or other guys winning when they need it most. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. So I guess let me finish out here because it is getting late. I hope that we all enjoyed the stadium talk, the Bills talk. I think hopefully that showed my point there. A little sneak peek. I'm planning on maybe trying to do another example of who the Bears could be if they were to morph into a team with one or two moves. We've kind of hinted at it a little bit with the Seattle Seahawks. I think that there's some eerie similarities there as well. So I may do a deep dive on that as well. But to get us out of here, Mr. Shorty, I told you could pick a segment, anything you wanted to talk about. And you said, I've just got to get this thing off my chest that's just been irking the hell out of me since 2018. And I said, what are you talking about? And you're like, dude, I'll just send you the clip. I'm going, okay, what is this man's problem? And I'm getting busted your balls here, Shorty. But
please bust my balls. Let's do it. Bust my balls.
You sent me a first quarter play that wasn't like a touchdown, an interception or anything. I'm like, I had to watch it.
I thought it was in the fourth quarter, but I was wrong.
I'm over here watching. I'm like, what am I missing? And then finally, I asked you. I was like, is it the placement? And you're like, yes, it's the placement, Jordan. How do you not see that? And I go, okay.
This is a first quarter play. What are you sending this to me for?
Yeah. And I'm going, okay, well, holy crap. He is really passionate about this. So I lived up to my promise. I said, I will give you the floor to talk us through this. So I hope this plays comedically. It's funny. We can engage. We can talk about it, chat. But we're going to kind of get into this here. So lead us off, Shorty, as I add this video to the screen.
What
is this game? Where are we at? Tell us about it.
So Jordan, first off, thank you for the floor on this, because I would like to know how many people that are in chat can remember this 2018 playoff game against the Eagles, the double doink game. And my memory served me wrong. I thought this was later in the game, but it doesn't matter nonetheless. It still happened in this game, in a playoff game. And to me, it is one of the most, if someone were to ask me, most annoying moments of your Bears fandom, I would probably, talk about like some of the Raiders games in the 90s, or where they had like 25 or 30 penalties against them and like everything went wrong, or some other dumb, weird, stupid thing. But in this case, I think it has to be this game, because what I want to show you guys here is, and I don't remember if, actually, I know that I never saw anyone in national media talking about this. I didn't really watch many podcasts back then, so I don't know how many people talked about it in podcasts. But I know that I never saw it anywhere in social media. It was neverwhere on television, ESPN, local Chicago radio or television or radio stations. So what I want to show you here is a play that happened in the 2018 playoffs, the double doink game. This is actually, sadly enough, it's in the first quarter with a minute and a half to go. The Eagles are backed up on their, what is that, their 7-yard line?
Yeah, the 7.
It's 3rd and 9. So what you're going to watch here is this play. They're going to hand the ball off. He's going to run the ball. He's going to hit that yellow line there at the 17-yard line. 17. Count them. 10, 15, 16, 17. Oh, there's the yellow line. Okay. Deion Bush is going to hit this running back like a freaking brick wall and stop the play. Boom. Right there. Perfect pause. Now, you can see his left foot is over the line to gain, but you can see Deion Bush has clearly crushed the ball. So the ball has hit a wall about 4 inches before the line to gain. Am I wrong, Jordan? Am I wrong?
No, I mean, this is, and we can rewind this a couple times, but
are these not my eyeballs looking at this? I mean, can we see this correctly?
And listen, I mean, you got to remember, it's the ball passes the plane, but the ball's tucked in. He is not extending.
Okay, but so let's just, so what happens here is that is not a first down. What happens after that is they do not challenge it. And nobody challenges it. In fact, it becomes a first down.
And let's watch the refs here. So, mind you, he never crosses the line. Ball's never extended. Let's rewind it once more.
Look at the ref up at the top of the screen there, Jordan. Oh, right before that.
We're going to get there, but let me just once more show the run. Let's focus on where he gets stopped and where the line is. Coming up. It's looking like he's going to get it. It's close.
Bada boom, bada bing.
But
he stopped right there.
He never passed.
He hits a freaking brick wall, Jordan. That's a brick. Jordan. Deion Bush creates a brick wall that he runs into. Now he's down. Now look where they put the ball. Look.
First down.
Look where they put the ball. The ball is at the 18-yard line.
Let's do this again. Yeah, so and even if you're like, okay, well, he didn't get stopped all the way back there, we're going to put it closer to the first down. But watch, the ball stopped at the 18, or excuse me, they're at the 17. So the 15, 16. So 1 yard short.
It's actually 6 inches short of the first down, but they don't review it. They don't call it. They give him the first down, but then they
just pick it up and go, oh nope, it's over here, guys.
Look at the ref going, hand it to me. I'm at the 18-yard line. Watch it again. The ref is at the 18-yard line going, here, give me the ball. I'll put it right here. I was watching this, and this has been infuriating me since this actually happened, and I've never heard anyone talk about it. Look, he's stopped. He's down. That should have been, hey, wait a second. Should we question this? You gave him a first down. Red flag. there's the first bad coaching decision by Nagy right there. He had a good season this year, but right there, that was the demise of Matt Nagy right there. Why not call a flag on that, or toss a red flag to challenge that?
I mean, let's be fair. We don't know what would have happened in the first quarter, but that is the difference between the drive continuing and the drive going back to the Bears in favorable position. They would have punted it around this 15-ish yard line and ultimately give the Bears the ball at like the 50. I mean, it makes it.
So you don't even challenge the spotting of the ball, because if you would have just challenged the spotting of the ball, then they would have had to bring out the chains and mark that to make sure it didn't go past the line to gain, and then they would have known, oh, we're putting the ball at the 17-yard line. But look what they put the ball, Jordan. They put the ball. Boom! Boom! My head's blown up when I'm watching this live. Did anyone else see this? I just want to know, anyone else in chat, did anyone else see this as it was happening live? 17-yard line. Look at it.
Well, I got to give you credit. Let me get it going here. I got to give you credit because I remember watching this game. It's the playoffs. I'm just like, I'm nervous. I'm waiting to see who's scoring. And this is the sad reality is a lot of the times, and I mean, if I'm feeling that as a fan, I'm not giving the refs a pass, but who knows what they're feeling in real time. But it's your job. You're being paid. You need to do the job right. But amazing for you to catch this because, yeah, I mean, look, the reality is nobody wants to admit this, but football games are usually turned over, changed, won by a single, maybe 2-3 plays in a game. It's minuscule.
It's a game of inches, Jordan, and a game of seconds, right?
Yep.
So inches and seconds. You're going to give them, I hope I'm not yelling too loud.
No.
You're going to give them another 3 feet. They just gave them 3 feet, Jordan.
Yeah.
In a playoff game, and nobody caught it. And I like what
Sugar Dot say. Yeah, he's too busy looking at his offensive play sheet.
Exactly.
we got Darren Cody here saying, Darren,
what am I going to do next?
Yeah, Darren also said he noticed it was short also, and couldn't believe it wasn't challenged.
I like what Eric just said. Trevathan was the only one pointing it out.
Yeah.
Didn't even notice that. Let it play out. Was he pointing it out?
All right, let's see. Let's back it up. Where's Trevathan?
He ran into a brick wall, Jordan.
Yeah, Trevathan's right there. He's looking at where he put him down.
That was Deion Bush's best play of his entire career as a Bear, and they didn't even give it to him.
Here, let's see. Yeah, so Trevathan comes in here at the last second to finish the tackle.
And then, where's Trevathan?
Right there in the middle.
Oh, yeah.
No, over there. Put the ball down there.
Yeah. 27 did too. Who was that? I'm thinking that's Thomas Graham.
That's Sheriff McManus.
Thank you. I mean, this is, to me, look at that 18-yard line.
Yeah.
You gave him 3 feet in a game of inches and a game of seconds in a playoff game at home.
Yeah, in a situation that ultimately speaking, again, we've talked about it. It's a game of inches. 1, 2, 3 plays can change the course of a game, and it's unfortunate. And this is the sad reality of it: is games are often misofficiated, and teams. I mean, God, let's look no further than the Steelers game last year, where it felt like, everything was going wrong from the ref standpoint. It cost them a game, and it's tough. It's tough, but I'm glad we got to show it. I hope that you feel like you've been able to relieve that angst and pressure and frustration. But
I feel so much better, Jordan. Thank you.
Well, and I also say this so that I can get you out of here. But at this point, we've now been going for almost 2.5 hours. I want to thank you so much, Mr. Shorty, for being on. I thought this was a pleasure, a true joy. Chat, I hope you had a wonderful time hanging out with myself, Mr. Shorty, tonight, talking Bears-Bills comparisons, Soldier Field domes, moving to Arlington Heights, N'Keal Harry. We span the carousel to even talk a little bit about the Patriots and Cam Newton and Mac Jones, to a little bit of John Brown and everything else, and draft players. And I hope it's been a good experience. As always, before we bid each other adieu, this is Bare Necessities, Barroom Network. You can find us at Barroom Network. Find me at Jordan T. Silveira. Mr. Shorty, you want to give a plug to where they can find you on Twitter?
Well, Jordan, to your credit, I really had no idea how to use Twitter before you, so thank you. But you can find me at Mr. Shorty, Sciorty, on Twitter, at Mr. Shorty. And Jordan, I just want to say thank you, like from the bottom of my heart. This has been just amazing. It's been like a dream come true, literally, just to come out here and talk Bears. I wish, I couldn't have, I can't see the chat and stuff going on because of everything else that's going on in the production of this. But I'm sure everyone else had amazing stuff to say. And, we were down a tooch tonight, so we had to kind of do this together, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm glad to help you out with it. And
well, I'll show you. I guess before we get out here, I'll show you a little bit. Cliff being always very complimentary.
Thank you, Cliff.
Yeah, amazing job, Mr. Shorty, Jordan. Cliff, once again, doing great. You too, Mr. Shorty. Didn't know better. If he didn't know better, he would have thought we were seasoned vets. Casey saying
you so much.
Love the show so far. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Casey.
Mr. Shorty, do you think this was a question? Do you think the Bears can win the North this year and win the playoffs, especially Super Bowl, to get a Soldier Dome like?
Oh, that actually is a perfect segue to end the show, Tommy. Every time that the Bears, I'm not a betting man, okay? I don't bet. I might bet my buddy, lunch or on something, but I don't place bets. But the only time I have placed bets is when the Bears have been this freaking low in the odds. So, I want to say 2006, but that seems like it was too high of odds for them to win a Super Bowl. So maybe it was 2005. I bet $100 because they were 50-1. In 2018, the same damn playoff game that they should have won if it wasn't for that and one other shitty call at the end where Anthony Miller dropped a ball and they called it a fumble, but it wasn't, or vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
If it wasn't for those two plays, I think we actually could have possibly won the Super Bowl that year. But that year, they were also 50-1 to win the Super Bowl, and I put another $100 on them to win the Super Bowl. My point is, both those years, they at least went to the playoffs. So now they're like 65-1 to win the Super Bowl. I say that's a season you want to put your money on for them to win at least the division. So for me, to answer your question, Tommy, I have the Bears going 11-6. You can write it down, put it on your calendar. They're going to win. Whenever anyone starts shitting on the Bears this much, it means that it's going to be the opposite. So for me, 11-6, Bears win division. We go to the playoffs. We take it from there.
Sounds good. I didn't realize my computer's not been charging here. I'm at 6%. So let's wrap this up quickly. Let me say a couple last words. Get a few nice comments in here. Bear Truth, you can find me on Twitter. I did see a question here. I'll just be quick. I don't think Calvin Ridley's a wide receiver one. If you want more questions, answers about that, you know where to find me. Email, Twitter. Real quick, when's Aldo coming back? J-Rock, I think in a couple weeks. He's still down in San Diego, California. He will be back shortly. Nick, good show today, guys. And, Barroom Network.
Nick.
Darren, another great show. The people telling you did a great job, Mr. Shorty, and everybody. Thank you so much. This has been Bare Necessities, and you all have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thank you all so much. Thank you, Jordan. Love you all.
Cheers, everybody.
Bear down.
Bear down. Bear down.